Chapter 14:16. They would never be from the same world? His Mu-Ying was also a secret agent? Leng Hanja was stunned. He had never thought of this possibility. Leng Hanja was already shocked when he found out that Yun Jian was the #1 secret agent on the secret agent ranking list. He never expected Yun Jian to say that he and Mu-Ying would never be from the same world. Because was she the same as Yun Jian? No. That's impossible. Ying has always been by my side since I was young. She never left me. How could she be the kind of person you're talking about? I don't believe it. You're that kind of person yourself. Don't compare my Ying to you. Leng Hanja loved Mu-Ying to the point of insanity. He didn't believe Yun Jian's words at all. He even yelled at Yun Jian. Yun Jian chuckled at Leng Hanja's words. Mu-Ying stood up and let go of Mad Dragon's embrace. She stopped Yun Jian. Yun Jian, this is my problem. I'll settle it myself. Mu-Ying had recovered from the tense atmosphere. Okay. Yun Jian nodded and stood beside Ce, who had just walked over. Leng Hanja looked at Mu-Ying with pleading eyes, as if he wanted to get the answer he wanted. But Mu-Ying said, Yun Jian is right. I'm not the real Mu-Ying. I'm just a wisp of consciousness. The real Mu-Ying died in a car accident when she was young. Do you still remember that crazy doctor? He was the one who injected my consciousness into the dead Mu-Ying. As for me, I was just a nameless assassin in the Inhun organization back then. I was once abducted into the organization along with hundreds of other children. I lived an ignoble existence in the cruel world. In the end, my limbs were cut off, my heart was dug out while I was still alive, and I was a pitiful little girl who was torn apart by wolves and dogs. Your Mu-Ying, your beloved Mu-Ying, is dead. Mu-Ying's words hit the nail on the head. Leng Hanja was stunned by Mu-Ying's words. He couldn't believe it, and he didn't dare to imagine that the girl he had loved since he was a child had changed halfway through. You're lying to me. Leng Hanja shouted at Mu-Ying like a madman. Mu-Ying stopped breathing after the car accident. I was the one who came back to life when she was buried, so she is already dead. I am me, I am My. Mu-Ying suddenly raised her voice. This made Leng Hanja completely believe him, and his mind was in a mess. If that was the case, then what was he? Did he love the young Mu-Ying or the current Mu-Ying? What was he after? Leng Hanja sat on the ground, completely paralyzed. How did you die? Cut off your limbs. Dug out your heart. Torn apart by wolves and dogs? This is a lawful society. How could such a cruel thing happen? Leng Lingling didn't care if Leng Hanja believed it or not. Leng Lingling's focus wasn't on the fact that Mu-Ying was no longer the Mu-Ying she used to be. Leng Lingling, Guo, and the others were just normal students after all. They had never heard of such a horrifying way of dying. Not to mention that such a horrifying person was standing right in front of them. Leng Lingling felt a chill run down her spine. Mu-Ying didn't reply to Leng Lingling, but Yun Jian did. Yun Jian smirked and told Leng Lingling, you're right. Chapter 14:17. Leng Lingling and this group of obedient girls who were protected in the arms of their parents would never be able to understand how they, who lived in this cruel and murderous world, managed to survive. Perhaps to them, the best life wasn't that tomorrow would be better than today, but that tomorrow they were still alive, that they weren't dead yet. Hearing Yun Jian's serious words, Leng Lingling gulped. She was sure that the current Mu-Ying was no longer the Mu-Ying of the past. After all, Mu-Ying was her best friend when they were young. Ever since Mu-Ying got into a car accident when they were young, she changed. She often hid in a corner and ignored her and her brother, Leng Hanja. From then on, Leng Lingling hated Mu-Ying. Perhaps Leng Lingling didn't hate Mu-Ying back then. She just didn't want to play with Mu-Ying anymore. Later on, Mu-Ying refused to be with her brother, Leng Hanja. Seeing how her brother did so much for Mu-Ying but didn't get anything in return, Mu-Ying started to hate Mu-Ying. Leng Lingling believed it when she got the answer. The mooing of the past and mooing after the car accident were too different. But Leng Hanja was different. He didn't believe it because he didn't want to accept the truth. Ugh. Is the world you live in really that scary? Leng Lingling muttered after hearing Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian ignored Leng Lingling this time and smiled coldly. Yun Jian, we. Mu Ying, who was standing not far away, signaled Yun Jian. Yun Jian saw Mu Ying's signal and suddenly realized something. Then, Yun Jian walked towards Leng Lingling. Mu Ying walked towards Leng Hanja. Seeing Mu Ying walking towards him, Leng Hanja thought that his Ying was back. Ying. Are you planning to? Before Leng Hanja could finish his sentence, Mu Ying appeared in front of Leng Hanja and knocked him unconscious with a horizontal slash. Brother. You guys. Leng Lingling was so shocked by the sudden turn of events that she let out a cry. Just as she spoke, she was knocked unconscious by Yun Jian. Leng Hanja and the others fainted. These people's memories could not be kept, especially since they already knew that Yun Jian was the top secret agent in the international secret agent ranking, slaying God. After the group of people were knocked unconscious, Yun Jian took out 3 bottles of chemical solvent from her bag. The liquid in these bottles was a new liquid called the 3-hour amnesia liquid that Qing Yu had recently developed. As long as a person drank a little of this liquid, they would forget everything that happened 3 hours ago. This was Qing Yu's latest product and it was one of a kind in the world. She did not sell it but gave Yun Jian 3 bottles. Yun Jian's identity as the top secret agent ranking, slaying God, was exposed. Not only would Leng Hanja and the rest have to forget about it, even the group of people who came with the tour group would have to forget about it. Therefore, after knocking out Leng Hanja and the rest, Yun Jian gave each of them a drop of the amnesia liquid. She then got Mad Dragon to knock out everyone in the tour group and gave each of them the 3-hour amnesia liquid. They were very close to the entrance of the Amazon forest, so they were not afraid that no one would notice them if they were knocked out. Yun Jian only used 1/3 of the 3-hour amnesia liquid from one of the 3 bottles. By the time Yun Jian rescued the savage from the Wildlife Research Institute nearby and brought him back to the tribe, it was already evening. Leng Hanja and the rest, including Dan Qingjie and the tour group, were all knocked out. It was obvious that they had forgotten everything that happened 3 hours ago. Chapter 14:18. They did not find the old man who had saved Mu Ying back then, so Yun Jian, Mu Ying, and the others returned to Min City. Mu Ying was saved by the old man when she entered the Amazon forest. If it were not for him, Mu Ying would not have been able to survive 6 months in the Amazon forest with her ability back then. Yun Jian, on the other hand, had survived there for 6 months with her own ability. Compared to Yun Jian, Mu Ying's ability was indeed weaker. It was also evident that Yun Jian was one of a kind to be able to survive 6 months in the Amazon forest with her age back then. Mu Ying was grateful to the old man for saving her life back then, but she still could not find him even after walking around the Amazon forest and nearly turning over the soil on the ground. In the end, Mu Ying could only accept her fate and return to Min City. Mu Ying went back to Min City while Yun Jian went back to Longmen City. Mu Ying went to Min City with Mad Dragon as well. Although Mu Ying felt that she was not good enough for Mad Dragon now, she could not bear to chase Mad Dragon away, so both of them went back together. Yun Jian went back to Longmen City with Ce. After staying in Longmen City for 3 to 4 days, the 7-day break after the military training was over. Yun Jian was ready to head back to Min City's military academy for class. Ce did not have time to accompany Yun Jian to class, but before Yun Jian left, he hugged Yun Jian and let Yun Jian sit on his lap affectionately for a while. Xiao Jian, I can't get away for a while. Come to Anhun for me later. In the room, Ce hugged Yun Jian's slim waist, refusing to let her go. He let Yun Jian sit on his lap and pressed his lips to Yun Jian's ear softly. Yun Jian was numb from Ce's breath, but she dared not move. She was pinned down by Ce, so she could only curl up and take it. She dared not move because she was sitting on his lap. Yun Jian was wearing a short white skirt and a pair of panties today. Ce's pants were so thin that it was as if he was wearing nothing. She was so shy that her face turned red. Let go of me, I have to catch the bus. I'll be late for class. Yunjian pushed Ce as she blushed. No. He spoke even more boldly. As he spoke, he placed his slender hand on her smooth thigh under her short skirt and gently rubbed it. Xiao Jian, you're so beautiful. Ce almost wanted to melt into her body. Xiao Jian, it's 6. The bus leaves at 6:30. Aren't you awake yet? You'll be late for school later. Qin Yiru's voice rang as she came up the stairs. The sudden voice made Yunjian blush as she pushed Ce again. With this push, a certain part of her body that was only covered by a thin layer of clothing rubbed against him twice. It would have been fine if it was not rubbing, but once it did, Yunjian could feel a certain part of Ce's body bulging. With that, Ce's breathing beside her quickened. Let go. Yunjian's expression could no longer be described as bashful. Xiao Jian, why aren't you up yet? You weren't like this before. Get up now. Qin Yiru came up the stairs and was coming to the room. Xiao Jian, move again and I'll take you, Ce suddenly whispered in Yunjian's ear. Yunjian's face flushed at once and she did not move anymore. Chapter 14:19. Just as Qin Yiru opened the door, she saw Yunjian standing in front of her in a white miniskirt. Her daughter was looking at her with a blushing face. Xiao Jian, what's wrong? Qin Yiru was surprised. Did you bully Ae? What Qin Yiru said next, however, made Yunjian wonder if she was Qin Yiru's biological daughter. Mom, I didn't. Yunjian said as she walked around Qin Yiru and went downstairs, reaching for her bag as she walked. Breakfast is on the dining table. Remember to bring it to the car. Qin Yiru watched Yunjian's back as she hurried down the stairs. She covered her mouth and chuckled before calling out to Yunjian. Yunjian hummed in response and went downstairs to pick up the breakfast that Qin Yiru had put in a white plastic bag from the dining table before heading out. She drove the car to Min City Military Academy. The 7-day holiday was over and today was the 10th of September. It was also the official start of Yunjian's school at Min City Military Academy. Hence, Qin Yiru wanted her to change into a white miniskirt with a pink top. Yunjian did not mind as she changed into it. She was also puzzled why Ce did not tell her to wear such a short skirt today. Shaking her head to stop thinking about it, Yunjian picked up her breakfast and carried her bag before heading out. Inside the house, Ce smirked. He was still thinking about how alluring Yunjian looked under her miniskirt. He would never tell anyone that he did not stop Yunjian from wearing such a short skirt today because, cough. It was already 8:30 a.m. when she arrived at Min City Military Academy. 9:00 was the school arrival time. Considering that the students came from far away, the school purposely allowed them to arrive before 9 o'clock on the first day. The next day, he would wake up at his normal time. Yunjian attracted a lot of attention as soon as she arrived at school. She still had her hair tied up in a high ponytail, but she wore a white short skirt and a pink top. She had a beautiful face, and her perfect face attracted the attention of countless people around her. Even the girls couldn't help but take a few more glances. Yunjian, I'm here. Come here quickly. Lin Wan was already waiting for Yunjian at the school gate. When she saw Yunjian, she rushed over and looked at Yunjian from head to toe. Hey, Yunjian, this short skirt really matches you. It's so beautiful. As she spoke, Lin Wan looked around again. She didn't see Muing. Why isn't Muing here today? I remember that she was always the first one to arrive. Let's stand here and wait. Yunjian pointed at the security post at the school gate and said. Okay. Lin Wan nodded. Then, she stood with Yunjian at the security post at the school gate and waited for Muing. Just as Yunjian and Lin Wan stood there, a female teacher on duty at the school gate who was less than 1.5 meters tall and wore a pair of stilettos saw Yunjian. She was about 150 kilograms in weight but was less than 1.5 5 meters tall. She was dressed fashionably in a pair of stilettos. The female teacher on duty saw Yunjian's beautiful figure. She was even wearing a white short skirt. Her perfect figure really made people jealous. So, the female teacher on duty came over and shouted at Yunjian, "Which class are you from?" Yelling wasn't enough. The female teacher even handed her duty book to Yunjian. Then, she shouted at Yunjian, "Write down your class name. Our school is a military school. Since you're here, don't you know the rules of the military school?" Chapter 14:20. The female teacher's voice trembled as she spoke. Her breasts were very big, and they kept trembling as she spoke. The female teacher's breasts were very big, but the fat on her abdomen was even bigger. As her breasts trembled, the fat on her abdomen trembled even more fiercely than the fat on her breasts. When the female teacher said this, she did not give Yunjian and Lin Wan a chance to speak. Instead, she spoke even more fiercely. Her words were like a machine gun, and she did not even give them a chance to take a breather. "You girls only know how to dress up. How dare you come to school wearing such a short skirt? This is a military school, hey! Do you know what a military school is? Don't make yourself look like a gorgeously dressed chicken. The boys in our military school will fight for the country's career in the future. They won't waste themselves by dating little girls like you. You girls, why don't you go to high school and come to our military school? Don't tell me you're here to seduce our boys to date you." The female teacher on duty was getting more and more ridiculous with her words. Yunjian did not know the rules of the military school, but since she had broken the rules by wearing a short skirt as Qin Yiru said, she, Yunjian, was not the kind of person who would ignore the school rules. Yunjian had already taken the duty book and pen from the female teacher on duty. She planned to write her name and class on it. Since she had made a mistake, she was not the kind of person who would not admit it. However, this female teacher acted as if she had killed someone. She had not stopped talking since she spoke. This made Yunjian, who was about to write her name and class on the duty book, stop. "Hurry up and write. Write your name and class on it. You broke the school rules, so you should be deducted points." The female teacher on duty saw that Yunjian had stopped writing, so she frowned and urged her. "Teacher, this is our first offense, and we are freshmen. We have not learned the school rules. My friend will not wear short skirts in the future. Can you not deduct this point?" Lin Wan spoke up for Yunjian. Usually, the first 1 or 2 weeks of school was for the students to get used to the school rules and regulations. Even if the students' names were recorded during the week of duty, the points would not be deducted. This was because the students would definitely need to adapt to a new school. However, at this moment, Teacher Zhou was planning to directly deduct Yunjian's class's score. Therefore, Lin Wan was not convinced. "As a student, how dare you talk back to your teacher?" The female teacher raised her voice at Lin Wan when she heard that. The female teacher had always thought that the military academy could only be a world for men. Girls like Yunjian and Lin Wan, why did they come to the military academy to study? For a young lady to come to a military academy to study, other than wanting to fish for men, what else could she do? If they were asked to train, even the simplest thing like standing in a military posture in the morning would probably make them faint from the sun. If they trained for a long time, they would even complain that they would become tanned. They would even have to apply sunscreen before training. Wasn't this talking about these girls who came to the military academy? Why did they not attend a normal school but came to the military academy to suffer? Wasn't it just to hook up with male students? The more the female teacher thought about it, the more she felt that girls like Yunjian and Lin Wan were despicable. She was about to use an even more exaggerated tone to insult Yunjian and Lin Wan. A male voice came from the side. Yunjian? Why are you standing here?" The person who spoke was Gu Yunjian's comrade, Yu Xiaoluo. Yu Xiaoluo was also an instructor at Min City's military academy. When the female teacher saw Yu Xiaoluo, she was stunned. She was about to point out Yunjian's evilness to Yu Xiaoluo. In the end, she heard Yu Xiaoluo pat Yunjian's shoulder and praise her. "Yunjian, you're really something. You've won first place in the wilderness survival event. Only the three of you were sent straight to the elite class among the freshmen. Huh, Slashing God from Team Monarch lives up to her name indeed. You're amazing." Chapter 1421. The news of Team Monarch Slashing God entering Min City's military academy as a freshman had spread like wildfire in the academy. Even if the female teacher did not pay attention to the news, she would have heard about Team Monarch Slashing God's impressive feats from others, not to mention that she was a snobbish teacher. The female teacher liked to hang out with other teachers in school and gossip about the male instructors and female teachers' family matters. She would also gossip about the new talent in the school and whether the talent had a backer. When she saw Yunjian and Lin Wan earlier, the female teacher instinctively assumed that Yunjian and Lin Wan were the kind of girls who came to the military academy to seduce the boys. She assumed that they came to the military academy for that. The female teacher hated girls who had no power or influence, had a better figure than her, dressed up to the nines in the military academy, and swaggered around the boys like chicks. Moreover, the school's rules clearly stated that female students were not allowed to wear short skirts. Using that as an excuse, the female teacher caught Yunjian and planned to give Yunjian a good scolding. That was what the female teacher thought and did. She wanted to teach Lin Wan, who was beside Yunjian, a lesson as well. However, she did not expect Yu Xiaoluo, Instructor Yu, to appear here. Instructor Yu was widely recognized as a young and promising instructor in the school. He was young and a very capable instructor. The female teacher wanted to use that as an excuse to criticize Yunjian in front of Instructor Yu so that he could help her teach Yunjian a lesson. However, Yu Xiaoluo walked up to Yunjian and patted Yunjian's shoulder, saying what he said earlier. Team Monarch Slashing God? Before Team Monarch Slashing God entered Min City's military academy, she had already caused a stir among all the instructors in the school. She had even caused the instructors to fight for her to join their team. A few days ago, she even won first place in the military training's outdoor survival event and was directly admitted to the elite class with 2 other girls. It was said that on the last day of the outdoor survival event, she represented Min City's military academy and destroyed the pride of Wulin Military Academy, which had always been at odds with Min City's military academy. Now, in Min City's military academy, Slashing God was the symbol of a legend. Even the instructors and teachers in the school could not help but feel respect when they heard the word. What more a mere female teacher like her? The female teacher on duty's face dropped to the freezing point. Yu Xiaoluo didn't know what the female teacher had just done. After hearing the female teacher's words, he laughed out loud and then responded to the female teacher. That's right, the killing god that everyone in our school is talking about is her. What do you think? Are you surprised? When I saw her this morning, I had the same reaction as you. I thought she was a weak little girl, but who would have thought? Haha. As soon as Yu Xiaoluo finished, the female teacher's face turned as red as a chili pepper. Not only did she suspect Yunjian, she even tried to make things difficult for Yunjian. However, the female teacher was also a person who changed her face faster than flipping a book. When she heard that Yunjian was slashing God, she immediately turned to look at Yunjian and put on a smiling face that almost squeezed her wrinkles together. So this beautiful girl is slashing God. I really didn't expect that, haha. As she spoke, the teacher looked at her watch and told Yunjian with a grin, "Students, go to class. 9:00 in the morning is considered as being late. Go now. It'll be bad if your homeroom teacher catches you being late." Chapter 1422. Just now, the female teacher was clearly targeting her. Yunjian wasn't an idiot, so she naturally saw through it. Therefore, Yunjian decided to beat her at her own game and directly retorted back. This time, the female teacher was extremely embarrassed. The female teacher regretted that she wanted to deal with Yunjian. Especially now, in front of the most handsome, most outstanding, and youngest instructor in the school, the female teacher was really a bit shy. After all, she was only 28 years old and was still unmarried. To put it bluntly, the female teacher wanted to leave a good impression in front of an outstanding man like Instructor Yu. But who would have thought that Yun Jian wouldn't be like the previous students who obediently followed her words and walked through the school gate? Instead, she directly pointed out what she had just done in front of Instructor Yu. Wasn't this clearly making her lose face? The female teacher clenched her fist in her heart. But because Yun Jian was a killing god, she could only force a smile that was still trembling to face Yun Jian. Yo, hee hee, how could that be? Teacher was just joking with you guys. In any case, you guys are new students who just entered the school. It's normal that you don't understand the school rules. Wait until you're familiar with the school rules, then don't make such a low-level mistake again. In school, if you meet a kind teacher like me, then it's fine. If you meet a kind teacher like me, then it's fine. But if you meet a kind teacher like me, then... Haha. The female teacher didn't finish her words, but the meaning in her words was more or less incisive. Just hearing the sentence, if you meet a kind teacher like me, Yun Jian felt goosebumps all over her body. I really haven't met a teacher who would stop someone on the first day of school wearing a short skirt and insist on deducting marks. Yun Jian very calmly said this embarrassing reality in front of the female teacher, without giving her any face. When these words came out, even Yu Xiaoluo felt a bit embarrassed. Ahem. That, Yun Jian, I think you guys should go back to the classroom first. It's already 8:43. Aren't you guys going to be late at 9 o'clock? Yu Xiaoluo stood up to ease the awkward atmosphere. We're waiting for a friend. Yun Jian said calmly. She then turned to the female teacher and said politely, thank you for asking me to stay, but I'm very sorry that you didn't manage to deduct points from my class today. After that, Yun Jian dragged Lin Wan to the other side to wait for Mu Ying. Cough, cough. I'll go take a look. Yu Xiaoluo didn't like talking to this female teacher who was almost 30 years old, wore a pair of high heels, and was less than 1.55 meters tall, so he casually found an excuse. The female teacher's ugliness was only one of the reasons. What Yu Xiaoluo didn't like was the conduct of the female teacher. Hey, instructor. You. The female teacher was a little unhappy when she saw Yu Xiaoluo walk away. Thus, she shouted at Yu Xiaoluo's back, Instructor, my name is Zhang Xiao, I'm the class teacher of grade 2, 3. The female teacher who called herself Zhang Xiao had always wanted to find a male instructor from the same school as her to be her boyfriend. It would be best if they could develop a husband and wife relationship. Instructor Yu was handsome and was about the same age as her, so Zhang Xiao couldn't help but have thoughts about him. When Yun Jian, Lin Wan, and Mu Ying went to report to the classroom, they were just a minute late. The three of them walked into grade 1, 2's back door together at the last minute. The grade 1 class officially started. Because there were only 3 people in the elite class, it was naturally impossible to set up another class so soon. In the following month, the school would select some good grade 1 students to enter the elite class together with Yun Jian and the other 2. In this month, Yun Jian and the other 2 naturally went to the class that they were assigned to previously like other students. Because today was the first day of school, there were no classes for the whole day. The class teacher assigned each student to their dormitory. Although there weren't as many girls as boys in grade 1, there were still quite a number. The dormitory was 6 people to a room. At this moment, Yun Jian was carrying her bag and heading to her own dormitory. Chapter 14:23. The dorms were assigned to all the girls in the first year of high school, regardless of class. 6 girls to 1 dorm. These dorms were assigned by the higher-ups of the school. The homeroom teacher, Teacher Chu, did not have the authority to do so. Due to the arrangement of the higher-ups, Yun Jian, Mu Ying, and Lin Wan were all not in the same dorm. Seeing this result, Lin Wan could not help but complain loudly, we're not in the same dorm? I just went to Teacher Chu to change dorms. He said he did not have the authority to do so, Mu Ying said. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. If it was a normal high school, the homeroom teacher would have the authority to change dorms. However, it was different in a military school. It was inevitable that there would be some discrepancies. Yun Jian did not find it strange. At this time, on the way to the dorm building, Lin Wan leaned over to Yun Jian and asked softly, "Oh right, Yun Jian, which dorm are you in?" 602, Yun Jian replied. "Wow. I'm in 603. That's not a problem. We're close. Although we can't stay in the same dorm, it's good that we're not far away," Lin Wan said loudly. "Oh right, Muing, what about you?" Lin Wan turned her head and asked Muing. "I'm in 603 like you," Muing said. There were actually only a few girls in the first year of high school. At most, they could form a class of 30 to 40 people. However, sometimes the probability was not high. When they were assigned dorms, they could not be in the same dorm. "Hey, how nice would it be if the three of us were in the same dorm?" Lin Wan sighed again. "It's okay. I can go over anytime," Yun Jian said indifferently. "Hey, Yun Jian, didn't the teacher say that our school rules state that students cannot casually sleep in the same dorm? You can't go to other people's dorms?" Lin Wan pouted. "Then I'll sneak over." Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. Then, she walked towards the dormitory building ahead of Lin Wan and Muing. Muing and Lin Wan both smiled. Both of them had never seen Yun Jian joke before. Now that they saw Yun Jian grinning, they were both stunned. But soon, Muing and Lin Wan followed. The 6th floor of the female dormitory building. Room 602. Lin Wan stood in dorm 603 and looked at Yun Jian reluctantly. In the end, she was pulled into her room by Muing. Yun Jian tilted her head and smiled faintly. Then, she carried her bag and walked into room 602. As soon as she entered the room, Yun Jian's roommates who had arrived at school were all in place. They were all sitting on their beds and tidying up their beds. When they saw Yun Jian walk in, one of the girls standing at the door grinned at her but didn't say anything. Yun Jian walked in with her bag on one shoulder. She had just walked into the room when suddenly, something fell from one of the beds. So annoying. I already said that I don't want to go to school in this damn place. Great, I didn't even bring my teddy bear. Without it, I can't sleep. It was a girl wearing a princess dress and dressed like a doll. She was sitting on the upper bunk bed. She was rummaging through her bag. Seeing that there was nothing in her bag that she wanted, she became impatient and threw a teacup from her bag onto the bed. Yun Jian had just entered her dorm when she was hit. Ah! Someone came in. One of the girls couldn't help but exclaim when she saw Yun Jian walk in and the teacup just happened to be thrown at Yun Jian. The other girls were slightly frightened. However, they saw that after Yun Jian sensed the danger, she reached out and caught the teacup that the girl in the princess dress had thrown from the upper bunk. Yun Jian didn't even look up and caught it. Chapter 1424. Several girls in the same dormitory thought that Yun Jian would suffer. After all, the girl in the princess dress just now smashed the teacup off the bed in anger, so one could imagine how fierce that force was. Yun Jian, on the other hand, had walked into the dorm without warning. That teacup was smashed so fiercely, it would be strange if this new student didn't suffer. But what the girls saw was that Yun Jian stretched out her hand and caught the teacup. After reacting, the girls in the same dormitory were all surprised. One of the girls couldn't help but clap, and then gave Yun Jian a thumbs up. God. Classmate, what's your name? You're so amazing. This girl's praise didn't make Yun Jian complacent. On the contrary, she didn't even show the slightest bit of a proud expression. Casually throwing the teacup on the upper bunk bed of the girl in the princess dress, Yun Jian turned her head and glanced at the girl who gave her a thumbs up just now and asked, "Are there any more beds?" The beds here weren't fixed. Generally, the beds were first come, first served. Whoever grabbed the lower bunk bed would get the good spot. There's still a bed in the corner, it's the upper bunk. The girl who gave Yun Jian a thumbs up said, and then she continued, "Classmate, you were so amazing just now. Is it convenient for you to tell us your name? Oh right, before asking for other people's names, you have to introduce yourself first. Hee, my name is Ning Kaidai, I'm a student of grade 1, 11, from Xia City, 16 years old this year. We have already introduced ourselves just now. Now our dormitory has 5 roommates including you, so you can introduce yourself again. A girl standing next to Ning Kaidai put her arm around Ning Katie's shoulder and said to Yunjian. After saying that, the girl stuck her tongue out at Yunjian, and then lively introduced herself to Yunjian. My name is Meng Xiaolian, I'm from Min City, 17 years old this year. Kaidai and I are classmates in the same class. As she spoke, Meng Xiaolian tightened her arms around Ning Katie's shoulders. My name is Han Nina. I'm 16 years old this year. My nationality is Y country. My mother is Z country. Also, my Chinese isn't very accurate. Please take care of me. A girl who had been sitting in the corner stuck her head out and greeted Yunjian shyly. This girl had a head of naturally golden wavy hair. Her skin was fair, and her facial features were very delicate. She looked as delicate as a doll. The most eye-catching thing was that the girl who called herself Han Nina had blue eyes. Unlike modern girls who wore cosmetic contact lenses, Han Nina's eyes were sky blue. They looked very natural and beautiful. After Han Nina greeted them, Yunjian also felt the friendliness of her new roommate. She adjusted her backpack and grinned, revealing a row of neat front teeth. She smiled at the 3 girls in front of her. My name is Yunjian. Obviously, the girls in front of her didn't know about Yunjian's achievements during the military training. Yunjian also didn't see these girls during the military training. They probably didn't participate in the military training. After all, not all students who came to the military school to become special forces or soldiers. The military school also had a major for training military doctors. Many female students still came to the military school to apply for the military doctor's position. Therefore, it wasn't strange that these female students didn't participate in the military training last time. Yunjian, your name is really nice, Ning Kaidai smiled at Yunjian. You guys are so annoying. Keep talking. Can't you see that I'm so annoying? Could you please shut your mouths? I'm going to make a call. Chapter 14:25. Seeing that the person sitting on the upper bunk had flipped out again, Ning Kaidai pursed her lips and hurriedly pulled Yunjian to the toilet. Then, she leaned over to Yunjian's ear and whispered, She's called Qingjiaojia. I don't know which class she's from. Anyway, she got angry the moment she entered the dormitory. After greeting us, she sat on the bed and threw a tantrum. I don't know who provoked her, but I think she's quite difficult to get along with. Oh right, there's another roommate in our dormitory. I heard that something happened at home, so she'll come back a few days later. Also, don't take the initiative to talk to Qingjiaojia. She's... Ning Kaidai didn't say anything after that. After Yunjian walked out of the toilet, she saw Qingjiaojia standing on the upper bunk bed with her hands on her hips. She was holding a cell phone in her hand and shouting at it. Yunjian didn't know who she was dialing. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be a military doctor. I want to go home. Get the butler to drive me home. What? Mom won't let me? I don't want to. I'm studying in this lousy school, and I'm not allowed to go home. I can't even hug my teddy bear to sleep. I want to go home. I want you to get the butler to drive me home immediately. Otherwise, I'll complain to Grandma and get her to fire you. Regardless of Qingjiaojia's identity, one could tell from her clothes and the way she was shouting at the person on the other end of the phone. Qingjiaojia was most likely a rich young lady. She definitely had some status. Yunjian carried her school bag and went straight to the top bunk bed in the corner. She threw her school bag on the bed, then grabbed the handrail of the top bunk bed. She didn't even put her leg on the steps of the top bunk bed. With a flip of one foot, she jumped from the ground to the top bunk bed that was about 1.45 meters high. Then, she began to tidy up her things. None of the girls in dormitory 602 came to the military school to learn martial arts, except for Yunjian. Every girl here was here because they wanted to study military medicine. This meant that every girl here was no different from an ordinary girl. Therefore, when they saw Yunjian jump onto the bed, every girl present opened their mouths wide in shock. Even Qingjiaojia, who was still throwing a tantrum, opened her mouth and didn't react for a long time. Wow, my God. Yunjian, why are you so powerful? Aren't you a medical student? When Ning Kaidai saw Yunjian's move, she and Meng Xiaolian walked over in surprise. The two of them looked at Yunjian in shock. Study medicine? Yunjian's eyebrows twitched slightly, then she shook her head gently. No. Wow. Are you planning to become a soldier in the future? Ning Kaidai continued to ask in shock. Special Forces, Yunjian answered with 3 words. That's so cool. Ning Kaidai shouted again. Shut up. All of you shut up. Do you still want me to talk on the phone or not? Qingjiaojia roared again. This time, the atmosphere was completely stifled, and no one spoke. After tidying up their blankets and things in the dormitory, they returned to their respective classrooms. September 10th was the first day of school, and the students didn't attend classes on the first day. As soon as they arrived at the classroom, the homeroom teacher, Teacher Chu, announced a particularly delightful news. Students, the day after tomorrow, which is September 12th, is our school's 50th anniversary. In order to celebrate, the school is preparing to hold a food festival for the whole day. Because the announcement was rather sudden, the sophomores and juniors already knew about it. So tomorrow, the freshmen can go out to buy food and prepare for the food festival. Chapter 14:26. The class was overjoyed to have such an event right after school started. All of them shrieked when they heard Mr. Chu's words. When the students from the neighboring classes heard Yunjian and her classmates shrieking, they thought that something terrible had happened. All right. Don't get too excited, everyone. I'm even more excited than all of you. As a male teacher, Mr. Chu liked to joke around. Hearing Teacher Chu's words, all the students in the class laughed. Right, on the day of the food festival, other than selling your own food, you can also go to the stalls of other classes to buy food made by other classes. But remember, be careful. Mr. Chu reminded them again before he returned to his office. The food festival was on the 12th of September while the 13th of September was Qin Yiru's birthday. At the same time, the 13th of September last year was the day Yunjian was reborn. Counting the time, it had been almost a year since she was reborn into this body. Yunjian felt a little emotional. This year was the most relaxing one in her career as an agent. Yunjian's long lashes fluttered. On the 13th of September, the second day of the food festival, she planned to return to Longmen City to celebrate Qin Yiru's birthday. Yunjian even invited Gujunjian. Qin Yiru had no idea about it, of course. Yunjian planned to give Qin Yiru a surprise. Yunjian could skip her own birthday, but she felt that she had to celebrate Qin Yiru's birthday every year. The 12th of September came in the blink of an eye. Early in the morning, all the students in Min City's military academy did not have to go to class. They spent the morning preparing the food for the food festival. The students were nimble with their hands, each of them creating exquisite and delicious food. Some of the delicacies made one salivate just by looking at them. The food festival officially began in the morning. The start of the food festival meant that the students could sell their own food. There were all kinds of exquisite cakes, spicy soup, sushi, drinks. Even Yunjian was dragged by Lin Wan and Muing to buy a lot of food. At this moment, Yunjian was holding a big hamburger in her hand. As she ate, she asked Muing, "Is Mad Dragon still in Min City?" This question made Muing, who was drinking her drink, choke. Her cheeks were instantly covered by a bright red glow. "He's still here." "Yes." Yun Jian nodded gently. Hey hey. Yun Jian. At this moment, Yun Jian saw her new roommates, Ning Kaidai, Meng Xiaoyan, and Han Nina, who were selling cakes, waving at her. Other than herself, Yun Jian knew that Ning Kaidai, Meng Xiaoyan, Han Nina, and Qing Jiaojie were all in the same class. However, Ning Kaidai and the other two didn't want to play with Qing Jiaojie. Qing Jiaojie was sitting not far away. She was snorting coldly as she squatted there and played with her phone. Seeing Yun Jian come over, Ning Kaidai stuffed a cake into Yun Jian's hands. Hey hey, Xiaoyan and I made this together. It's free of charge. It's delicious, hee hee. Yun Jian accepted it without hesitation. Just as she took the cake, she suddenly saw a military helicopter anxiously landing on the sports field not far away from the food festival. The food festival stall was not far from the sports field. When she saw the military helicopter, Yun Jian's eyelids twitched slightly. At this moment, she saw Yu Xiaoluo running over. When he saw Yun Jian, Yu Xiaoluo's expression was very ugly. Yun Jian. When Yu Xiaoluo ran over, his face was terrifyingly dark. It was an ugly and uneasy feeling that he had never felt before. Yun Jian, listen to me. Don't get agitated. Your dad, he represented Z country and a group of Interpol yesterday to arrest the boss of the European and American underground black market. In the end, he didn't come back. According to the people who escaped, he was caught. It's very likely that he's already. Yun Jian's dad was naturally referring to Gu Junjian. At this point, Yu Xiaoluo's voice was a little choked up. Hearing this, the surrounding students were stunned. All the students in the military academy had just come into contact with these things. They all thought that these things that Yu Xiaoluo was talking about were very distant and glorious. But when they found out that Yun Jian's dad was very likely sacrificed because of this, all the students standing around couldn't help but look at Yun Jian sympathetically. They thought that Yun Jian would start howling like a normal girl after hearing about this. No, no. My dad will be fine. But after hearing this, Yun Jian was very calm. She looked at Yu Xiaoluo and said calmly, the boss of the European and American underground black market, right? Bring me there immediately. When Yu Xiaoluo heard Yun Jian's words, he thought that she was crazy. Yun Jian was powerful, the killing god of Team Monarch. But she was just a child. No matter how powerful she was, how could she fight against the European and American underground forces alone? Yun Jian, don't get agitated. Listen to me. We'll do our best to save your dad. Before Yu Xiaoluo could finish, Yun Jian said to Yu Xiaoluo in front of all the students. Chapter 14:27. Once Yun Jian said that, everyone was stunned. Whether it was the instructors who chased after Yu Xiaoluo, Lin Wan, Yun Jian's new roommates, Ning Kaidai and the rest, as well as the students who were participating in the food festival, they were all stunned by Yun Jian's arrogant words. No matter how shocked or frightened the people around them were, they were nowhere near as shocked as Yu Xiaoluo and the instructors. The boss of the Western Underground black market was indeed a man named Glenn. Moreover, Yu Xiaoluo had only told Yun Jian that her father and a group of Interpol had tried to capture the boss of the Western Underground black market but were caught instead. Yun Jian had said the boss's name accurately. Even the male students who were studying in the military school and paid more attention to international affairs would not know the name of the boss of the Western Underground black market, right? Although Yun Jian was the slashing god of Team Monarch, she was only a 15-year-old girl at the end of the day. No matter how powerful Yun Jian was, how did she know? While the people around them were stunned, Yun Jian was already making her way to where the military helicopter was parked. Seeing Yun Jian walking toward the military helicopter, Yu Xiaoluo reacted quickly and walked over to stop Yun Jian. Yun Jian, calm down. I know you're capable, but Glenn's identity is not ordinary. Interpol had sent many internationally renowned agents to infiltrate the Western Underground black market's territory and sacrificed many people, but they could not arrest him. If you act so rashly, not only will you not save old Gu, you'll even lose your life. Yu Xiaoluo spat out those words with red eyes and trembling. As a special forces soldier who protected the country, they faced danger at all times. Yu Xiaoluo and Gu Junjian had known each other for a long time. He hoped more than anyone that Gu Junjian could come back alive. However, Yu Xiaoluo knew that Yun Jian was Gu Yunjian's current daughter. Gu Junjian doted on this daughter more than his own son. Yu Xiaoluo wanted to save Gu Junjian more than anyone else. But he couldn't risk Yun Jian's life. The atmosphere of the food festival immediately dropped. Yun Jian knew that Yu Xiaoluo said this for her own good. After all, if she was really just an ordinary girl, it would be very dangerous to rush to the rescue. That was true. However, she was no ordinary girl, nor was she Team Monarch/God. Tomorrow was Qin Yiru's birthday, but something happened to Gu Junjian. How was she going to explain this to Qin Yiru? Was she supposed to watch Gu Junjian get into trouble? She clearly had the ability to save Gu Junjian, so why didn't she do anything? She couldn't do that. For the sake of Qin Yiru, Yun Jian had to do something. If I don't do anything, which one of you can save my father? So get out of my way. Yun Jian didn't explain much. She pushed Yu Xiaoluo away and ran towards the military helicopter. Hey! Yun Jian! Seeing this, Yu Xiaoluo and the other instructors chased after her. What's going on? Ning Kaidai asked in a daze. Pfft, why is she joining in the fun? Does she really think she's Superman? Hee hee. Qing Jiaojie, who was sitting on the bench, played with her phone and said coldly. Qing Jiaojie didn't like being in Min City's military academy, and she hated everyone in Min City's military academy. She's not Superman, she's a god. An existence that no one can surpass. Mu Ying turned her head and glared at Qing Jiaojie. She said calmly and followed Yun Jian. They'll be fine, right? Although Lin Wan was scared, she still wanted to follow. A slender hand grabbed the corner of Lin Wan's shirt. Leng Hanja walked over and grabbed the corner of Lin Wan's shirt. He said to everyone, Yun Jian will be fine. She can fly a helicopter and go in and out of the Amazon forest freely. It's not an exaggeration to say that she's a god. Leng Hanja, who suddenly appeared and said these words, made Lin Wan, Ning Kaidai, Meng Xiaoyan, and all the other students who were standing around them open their mouths in shock. Yun Jian could fly a helicopter? And in a terrifying place like the Amazon forest, freely. Chapter 1428. Leng Hanja's mouth twitched when he saw everyone's shocked expression. He didn't say anything else. Yes, Yun Jian was a god. She wasn't just the legend of Min City Military Academy. She was also a world-class legend. Such a terrifying person. Such a frightening existence. Leng Hanja pursed his lips and didn't say anything in the end. However, the fear he had for Yun Jian, or rather, the thoughts in his heart, was something that no one present could imagine. Yun Jian, she wasn't an ordinary student of Min City Military Academy. She was, yes, Leng Hanja didn't forget what happened in the Amazon forest. He was the only one who didn't forget what happened that day. He even knew Yun Jian's identity and Ying Ying's identity. After knowing Mu Ying's identity, Leng Hanja suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Ying Ying didn't like him anymore. However, when he found out that the Mu Ying he liked when he was young was actually a different person from the Mu Ying he knew now, Leng Hanja didn't feel like he couldn't handle it. Instead, he heaved a huge sigh of relief. So, his Ying Ying never hated him. She was just a different person. And his Ying Ying might not even be alive anymore. Senior, why are you crying? Lin Wan's clothes were grabbed by Leng Hanja. Just as she was about to ask Leng Hanja to let go of her clothes, she saw a tear at the corner of Leng Hanja's eyes. I'm fine. The wind is too strong now. The sand got into my eyes. Let's just leave it at that. You guys don't have to worry about it. Go do whatever you need to do. Yun Jian will be fine. Trust me. Leng Hanja let go of Lin Wan's clothes and walked to the side listlessly. Yun Jian ran towards the military helicopter at lightning speed. Yu Xiaoluo and the other instructors chased after her with all their might. However, they realized that Yun Jian's steps weren't big, but her speed was much faster than all of them. Yu Xiaoluo knew that Gu Junjian was probably dead. He was indeed upset, but he couldn't just watch as Yun Jian ran towards the military helicopter. This military helicopter was indeed carrying Yu Xiaoluo to rescue Gu Junjian. However, if Yun Jian went with them, Yu Xiaoluo felt that he would let Gu Junjian down. Because if Yun Jian went with him, it would be extremely dangerous. Before Yun Jian came to Min City Military Academy, he had told Yu Xiaoluo to keep an eye on Yun Jian and protect Yun Jian. If something really happened to Yun Jian, then Yu Xiaoluo would break his promise. U.S. when heat, TSS when he's, he, S and he's as A's. Han, T's, he's estes. He, T. Yun Jian's yunt, S, Yun Jian, S Yun's Yuns, however, the pilot's reaction was also quite fast. He immediately raised the helicopter that was parked on the field. At this moment, Yun Jian was only about 10 meters away from the helicopter. When Yu Xiaoluo and the others saw the pilot raise the helicopter, they thought that Yun Jian couldn't go up. However, what happened next stunned the entire audience. Yun Jian's body tilted forward. She ran 5 meters at the speed of light, but when she was 5 meters away from the helicopter, she stomped on the ground and leaped forward. At this time, the helicopter had already flown about 2 meters in the air. She rushed forward and actually grabbed the bottom handle of the helicopter before it was about to leave the ground. With a light swing, Yun Jian stepped on a board and nimbly flipped her body to the side of the helicopter. The pilot did not close the door and easily boarded the helicopter. When the helicopter took off, if there was any grass on the ground, it would be blown wildly. The force of the wind was very strong. Not to mention other factors, Yun Jian's move was very dangerous. The difficulty level was also abnormally high. Chapter 1429. Even though the instructors were stunned, they did not forget to continue running in that direction. However, the astonishment on their faces could not be erased. She actually got on the helicopter. One of the instructors shouted in shock as he ran. At the same time, he had a stunned expression on his face. One had to know that the instructors present were all very powerful, but none of them could do that. Rushing up the helicopter when it was taking off? That was playing with one's life. Usually, when a helicopter was flying high in the sky, ropes would be thrown down for people to grab onto. Many special forces soldiers knew how to do that. Although it was not easy, any special forces soldier with a strong enough physique could do it. However, when the helicopter took off, the force from below would cause a strong gust of wind on the ground. At this time, there was no one who could get on the helicopter without using any ropes. At least, the instructors in front of them could not do it. Damn, she's too powerful. Is she really just a student from Min City's military academy? One of the instructors directly complained. Just as he complained, Yun Jian had already knocked out the pilot on the helicopter. Then, she steered the helicopter back and lowered the rope from the helicopter. Mu-Ying, get up. After she lowered the rope, she returned to the pilot's seat and accurately steered the helicopter to Mu-Ying's side. Mu-Ying ran forward 2 steps and then jumped violently. Yu Xiaoluo and the other instructors also saw the rope that was lowered. They wanted to rush up and grab the rope, but they did not expect that when Yun Jian lowered the rope, it was right in front of Mu-Ying. Mu-Ying reached out and grabbed the rope. Then, she climbed the rope and got on the helicopter in a few breaths. Then, she put the rope away. Instructor Yu, I'm sorry. But he's my father. It's my mother's birthday tomorrow. Before tomorrow, I'll definitely bring my father back. With that, Yun Jian piloted the helicopter and left the place skillfully. Damn. Who can tell me why this girl knows how to fly a helicopter? A plump instructor put his hands on his waist and gasped in surprise as he wailed. Just now, they had used all their strength and still couldn't catch up with Yun Jian. This made him feel incredulous. Yun Jian was just a little girl who had just entered the school. Going further, she was Team Monarch/God, yet she possessed such astounding strength. Now King know why you guys snatched her into your team before she even entered the school. How is this girl a good seedling? She was simply a genius. We might not even meet one in a few hundred years. One of the instructors slapped his knee in an exaggerated manner as he yelled loudly. Yu Xiaoluo scratched his head. He took out his phone and called his superior to request for another helicopter to catch up with Yun Jian. Since Yun Jian had already gone this far, he really couldn't stop her. Moreover, with Yun Jian's skills, he might as well go all out. Country X. There were more than 10 countries in Europe and America, and Country X was one of them. The boss of Europe and America's underground black market, Glenn, liked to stay in Country X the most, so Yun Jian directly flew the helicopter to Country X. At this time, the helicopter's fuel was almost used up. Yu Xiaoluo, 2 other Special Forces soldiers, and a pilot's helicopter followed Yun Jian's helicopter closely. The more they flew, the more the pilot exclaimed, "Damn, who is this little girl? This helicopter is so stable. She avoided the airflow all the way here. There's no turbulence at all. She flew the helicopter directly to Country X. Did she know that the boss of Europe and America's underground black market, Glenn, is in Country X? F***ck, this girl is too fierce." Chapter 1430. On the other side, Yun Jian was sitting in the pilot's seat. The man who was supposed to be the pilot of the plane was tied up. Yun Jian didn't do anything to him. She just wanted him to behave a little. "Damn, little girl, you're so powerful. When you come back, you must teach me how to avoid the airflow. I've been flying a helicopter for 3 years, and this helicopter can't avoid the airflow in my hands. It's bumping and bumping." The pilot didn't realize that he was tied up by Yun Jian. Instead, he was eager to learn and asked Yun Jian to teach him the technology. Yun Jian curled her lips, thinking that this pilot was quite interesting. Yun Jian landed the helicopter in a deserted place, and then let Muing untie the rope that tied the pilot. "The helicopter is out of fuel. You can contact someone to take you back." Yun Jian glanced at the pilot, then gathered the things on her body and walked to a quiet place. She had all kinds of knives on her, although she didn't have guns. But guns, she could snatch them herself. Seeing this, Muing followed Yun Jian's footsteps and walked over there. Just as the two of them walked over there, they were stopped by Yu Xiaoluo, who rushed over. "Yun Jian, listen to me, Glenn is definitely not the opponent you met before. He has a stronger background. Over the years, we and the Interpol have sent dozens of agents or special forces to his lair, but the result was no exception. In the end, there was no news. We still can't contact them. I'm more anxious than you about your father's accident, but it's useless to be anxious. How about this? I agree to let you stay, but we have to think about it in the long run. There will definitely be a rescue plan, but we have to take it slow." Just as Yu Xiaoluo said this, he was interrupted by Yun Jian. "How many people do you have? Where are you stationed? Take me there." She even knew this? Yu Xiaoluo was shocked. After all, the boss of the underground black market in Europe and the United States had to be eliminated. Only then could the people be at peace. Therefore, the Interpol had always sent people to lurk in Country X, in order to arrest the bad guys one day. But he had never told Yun Jian that Country X also had people stationed there for a long time. How did Yun Jian find out? "Lead the way," Yun Jian said again. Hearing this, Yu Xiaoluo did not hesitate. He, together with 2 Special Forces soldiers, brought Yun Jian and Muing to a bustling street in Country X. The architecture of Country X was completely different from that of Country Z. Whether it was in terms of customs or style of dress, it was completely different from Country Z. Yu Xiaoluo took Yun Jian, Muing, and 2 other Special Forces soldiers to a deep alley. They then went around many streets and came to a house. Standing outside the house was a man wearing very ordinary country X clothes. When he saw Yu Xiaoluo, the man quickly stood up. "Old Yu?" Yu Xiaoluo made a gesture and then led Yun Jian and the others into the house. As soon as they walked into the house, Yun Jian saw many women and men dressed as locals. "Let me introduce you. These are all members of the Interpol Brigade from all over the country." Yu Xiaoluo introduced the group of people dressed as locals to Yun Jian. "Old Yu, how can you introduce them so casually? If this..." One of them heard Yu Xiaoluo's words and immediately spoke with dissatisfaction. But just as this person opened his mouth, he was stopped by Yu Xiaoluo. "They are all on the same side. These two are students from Min City's military academy." "What? You actually brought students from Min City's military academy here? Are you crazy? What is this place? Don't you know?" A foreign woman heard Yu Xiaoluo's words and immediately shouted. This foreign woman was also from the Interpol Brigade and could speak Chinese. However, the clothes she was wearing now were no different from the women of Country X. It was obvious that she was disguised as someone from Country X. "That's right. Old Yu, you were too careless this time." After the foreign woman finished speaking, someone immediately agreed. "I didn't bring them here. The two of them stole our helicopter and drove it here." However, Yu Xiaoluo's next sentence made this group of people who accused him of wrongdoing shut their mouths. "What? They drove a helicopter here? Are you kidding me?" Hearing Yu Xiaoluo's words, a woman in the corner jumped up in shock. Chapter 1431. They flew a helicopter here? Oh my God. Old Yu, don't tell me that these two girls know how to fly a helicopter. After the man who brought Yun Jian and the others into the house took off his Country X costume, he walked to Yun Jian and Mu Ying and circled around them a few times, then let out a cry of surprise. "I don't know how to fly a helicopter. The one who knows how to fly a helicopter is Yun Jian." Mu Ying opened her mouth and said. Mu Ying didn't know how to fly a helicopter. In her previous life, she was only 9 years old when she died, so she had never touched a helicopter at all. After Mu Ying's death, 70% of Yun Jian's batch of children were eliminated, and the remaining children began to learn all kinds of heavy weapons, including helicopters, fighter jets, and so on. In the organization, not all children were allowed to learn powerful weapons from the beginning. Only after eliminating most of the weak, would the strong be selected from a small group of strong people. This small group of strong people was the focus of the organization's training. They had to learn all kinds of weapons, from aircraft, tanks, and cannons, to knives, guns, and flying arrows. As an agent, no matter where they were, they had to immediately integrate into the environment. This was something that had to be done, regardless of whether it was an agent of an underground organization or an agent of a loyal country. And in the organization, there was a written rule that those who couldn't finish learning all the heavy weapons arranged by the organization within the specified time would die. So in the end, out of the hundreds of children, only 3 survived. Speaking of which, back to reality. Mu Ying's words just now successfully turned everyone's eyes to Yun Jian. Just now, when he led Yun Jian and the others into the house, the man couldn't help but swallow a breath. He saw Yun Jian standing there with one hand in her trouser pocket, standing very lazily, as if the person that everyone was talking about just now wasn't her. Cough cough. Let's not dwell on this question first. Yu Xiaoluo immediately eased the atmosphere, then he quickly said, "What we need to discuss now is how to sneak into Glen's territory and rescue old Gu. We've sent so many agents to infiltrate Glen's territory, but what did they send back? No one could escape from Glen's territory. Without exception, they were all discovered and killed. We haven't even been able to contact them yet. Old Yu, you should know the dangers of that place better than any of us." The one who spoke was the man who had just led Yun Jian and the others in. This man was a member of the Interpol. His name was Zheng. He was quite righteous and good at collecting information. When Zheng said this, there was a trace of despair in his voice. Obviously, he wanted to save Gu Junjian very much. However, based on the current situation, saving him was harder than ascending to the heavens. When Zhengliang said this, Yu Xiaoluo fell silent. Yu Xiaoluo naturally understood what Zhengliang meant. Based on the current situation, there was basically no hope of rescuing Gu Junjian. When Yin Jian heard this, she frowned slightly and turned to walk towards the door. "Hey, Yin Jian, where are you going?" Seeing that Yin Jian was about to leave, Yu Xiaoluo hurriedly ran over to stop her and asked. "If you're not going, I'll go." Yin Jian said indifferently. "Your sister, are you crazy? That's an underground organization. A black market. Do you think you have 3 heads and 6 arms? Do you have the ability to go in? We're already in a mess, don't add to it." The woman who spoke was the one who was standing in the corner just now. However, just as the woman finished speaking, Yun Jian suddenly swung her hand and 5 blades flew neatly from Yun Jian's side to the woman's side. At the same time, Yun Jian was so fast that Yu Xiaoluo couldn't react at all. She dashed from the door to the woman standing in the corner. 5 blades flew past the woman's head, left shoulder, left waist, right shoulder, and right waist at the same time without hurting her at all. The woman was so frightened by the sudden blades that her face instantly turned pale. However, before she could come back to her senses, she saw a shiny butterfly knife on her neck. The fragrance of a young girl wafted over. The first thing she saw was Yun Jian standing at the door far away from her. She arrived in front of her in a short 3 seconds. Chapter 1432. You don't have the right. These 4 words were like an invisible slap that almost made the woman vomit blood. However, the woman had to admit that she did not react to Yun Jian's attack at all. This also meant that the student from Min City's military academy in front of her was more powerful than her. She did not even have the chance to react when she attacked. "Blackie, don't underestimate her. You don't know, at that time, in order to stop her from getting on the helicopter, I let the helicopter pilot fly the helicopter into the sky first. In the end, she rushed over and snatched the helicopter when it was already in the air. She was able to accomplish such a dangerous task so easily. I think we can give it a try with her around to save old Gu today. Anyway, I'm going all out. At most, I'll lose my life. I can't interfere with whether you guys are willing to come together or not. After all, your lives are your own. But as brothers, as my brothers and comrades, don't stop us today. I want to go with them." Yu Xiaoluo had been frowning and thinking about this matter just now. In the end, he did not care anymore. He decided to go all out. Gu Junjian was like his elder brother. He had helped him a lot. Later, they became comrades and were very close. Now, Gu Junjian was in trouble. His elder brother was in trouble. How could he sit still and wait for death? "Yin Jian, the 3 of us go." He was willing to believe in Yin Jian for once. Yu Xiaoluo clenched his fists. He shouted at Yin Jian and walked out. The woman called Blackie by Yu Xiaoluo was codenamed Blackie. She was not dark. She was from H country and could speak Chinese. She looked no different from Z country people. Blackie was shocked by Yu Xiaoluo's story about Yun Jian. Now that she saw Yu Xiaoluo bringing Yun Jian and moving to Glen's headquarters alone, she wanted to say, "Hey, you." In the end, Blackie stopped talking and could not say anything. "Let them go. Let them go. They know that it's a big fire pit, but they still want to jump there. I told him that we can't move now." When did Yu Xiaoluo become so unwise? Seeing that Yu Xiaoluo could not be pulled back, he followed Yun Jian and the other 2 out of the house. Zhengliang suddenly slammed the table and roared. Zhengliang was the captain of all the Interpol members present. Yu Xiaoluo's identity was an instructor at Min City's military academy. He also had another identity. He was a member of Interpol and Zhengliang's team. "Captain, this." Blackie looked at Zhengliang's eyes. Finally, Zhengliang slammed the table. Here, Yun Jian's use SS2's hua, teat, ss/ss, the ses writes. STTs you people's teat he s. Some people would be so scared that they would piss their pants before the war started when they heard her identity, but an old fellow like Glenn wouldn't fall for this. However, since these people were not willing to help her, she had to save good Junjian by herself. No matter how powerful Glenn was, he was just Yun Jian's defeated opponent. Yun Jian, how are we going to sneak in? Should we split up or? Yu Xiaoluo asked Yun Jian. Follow me and listen to my instructions. Yun Jian gave a short answer. Then, she took Yu Xiaoluo and Muing to Glenn's. Chapter 1433. The front desk of Glenn's headquarters was the biggest casino in Country X, the Gleaner Casino. Glenn's headquarters was right behind the Gleaner Casino. To enter Glenn's headquarters, one would have to pass through the Gleaner Casino. The entrance of the Gleaner Casino was heavily guarded. Any rustling of leaves in the wind would alert the guards. To enter, one would have to pass through the security check at the entrance. Yun Jian was familiar with the place as she had been here more than once. Of course, she had been here as Slaying God back then, but she had disguised herself with another face. Slaying God's real face had not been seen by many in the underworld or even in the assassin and secret agent circle. Perhaps Slaying God would often appear in public, but every time she appeared, she would change her face. The shape of her face was different every time, and even her height and weight were sometimes ambiguous. Therefore, outsiders had no idea what Slaying God looked like. Although Glenn was a despicable man, in Yun Jian's world, he was a big shot with an extraordinary international status. Even Yun Jian had to put in some effort to deal with Glenn. At that moment, Yun Jian was standing not far away from the Gleaner Casino with Yu Xiaoluo and Muing. The house next to them could cover Yun Jian, Yu Xiaoluo, and Muing. Follow my instructions from now on, Yun Jian said with narrowed eyes. Muing and Yu Xiaoluo nodded. Then, Yun Jian waved, planning to lead Muing and Yu Xiaoluo over there. Just as Yu Xiaoluo was about to walk over, Yun Jian noticed a few people popping out from the side. They grabbed Yu Xiaoluo and stopped Yun Jian and Muing from moving forward. Looking closely, they were none other than Zheng Liang, Blackie, and the rest. You guys. When Yu Xiaoluo saw Zheng Liang and the others, he was so shocked that he almost shouted out loud. However, Zheng Liang and the others covered his mouth. Little brat, keep your voice down. Just now, you ran out after saying those words in high spirits. As the captain, I can't just sit around and wait for my death. Listen to my orders later. The rest of you, follow me and sneak in. Zheng Liang gently slapped Yu Xiaoluo's head and said sternly. Captain, you. Yu Xiaoluo knew that he had been too impulsive today. Who wouldn't be anxious in the current situation? When Gu Junjian was in trouble, who wouldn't be anxious to save him? However, if he acted rashly, not only would he not be able to save them, he might even lose his life. Zheng Liang was considering the big picture. In comparison, Yu Xiaoluo was childish. However, Yu Xiaoluo had never expected that his team members would still follow him even though they knew that he was taking a risk. Therefore, Yu Xiaoluo was so touched that he couldn't speak. All right, don't say anything. Listen to my orders. Let's go. Zheng Liang waved his hand and said. Yun Jian, who was standing at the side, blinked her eyes. I'll bring you in through the back door. In the next moment, Yun Jian's words were heard. What? Back door? Zheng Liang suddenly heard Yun Jian's words. He immediately turned his head and looked at Yun Jian in surprise. What back door is there? In order to ensure his own safety, Glenn wanted to enter his base camp. Everyone knew that there was only one way to go, and that was to enter through the main entrance of the Gleaner Casino. How could there be other back doors? Black Sister was stunned for a moment before asking in return. Just follow me. Yun Jian said with a red arc. 10 minutes later, the few of them easily arrived at the backyard of Glen Casino, which was also Glen's base camp. Hiding in the corner, Zheng Liang and the others looked at Yun Jian in surprise. Chapter 1434. Don't look at me like that, I know a lot of things. Yun Jian turned the butterfly knife in her hand. She didn't lose her smile and said softly. Everyone's curiosity was piqued when they heard this. But at this moment, no one dared to make a sound. Yun Jian spoke all the way, but she was able to successfully avoid the enemy's attention without being discovered. The few people present were slightly impressed by Yun Jian. They couldn't help but sigh from the bottom of their hearts. This little girl was really too powerful. Just like what Yu Xiaoluo said. No. It was even more powerful than what Yu Xiaoluo had described. At least at this moment, they had already entered Glen's base camp. They had sneaked into Glen's base camp in 10 minutes. What an inconceivable thing. One had to know that some of the agents sent into Glen's base camp in the past were even caught as soon as they entered the gate. It took them a few days to barely sneak into Glen's base camp. This was already something that only very powerful agents could do. One had to know how strict the security of Glen's base camp was. It was like a fly flying in from the door. It would be discovered. Because this place was full of cameras. And Yun Jian? She led everyone to avoid one camera after another. She swaggered in as if she was in her own home. That's right, Yun Jian had swaggered in from the back door with everyone just now. She didn't look like she was hiding at all. If they were hiding, it was only now that everyone stopped and hid in the corner under the stairs to discuss countermeasures. Seeing that the few people in front of her still didn't dare to speak, as if they were afraid of being discovered, Yun Jian curled her lips slightly and said, "In the next 10 minutes, no one will pass by this staircase, so you can speak boldly." Based on the fact that Yun Jian had brought them into Glen's base in just 10 minutes, everyone had gone from being skeptical and doubtful in the beginning to believing whatever Yun Jian said now. They believed her without a doubt. What should we do next? Yu Xiaoluo asked. We have to find the dungeon of Glen's base camp first. Zheng Liang said. Zheng Liang said as he frowned. Base camp's dungeon? Blackie asked doubtfully. The dungeon of Glen's base camp should be in the basement. It's the cell that Glen used to imprison the agents who came to assassinate him. It should be near here. At this point, Zheng Liang frowned, and then his face couldn't help but darken. Captain, what's wrong? Blackie felt Zheng Liang's frown and couldn't help but ask. Intuition told Black Sister that the dungeon was not simple. Sure enough, Zheng Liang's next words made the hearts of everyone present tense. The dungeon of Glen's base camp was once known as the strongest cell in Europe and America. Not only were there agents who came to assassinate Glen, but there were also assassins and agents who were subdued by Glen. Even some international people who refused to submit to Glen were imprisoned there. Furthermore, this dungeon is heavily guarded. I've heard that the dungeon's door is built with the most advanced technology. Even if heavy weapons like tanks or cannons were to bombard the dungeon's door would still be as sturdy as iron. It's rumored that it's impossible to escape from the dungeon. Because there were many checkpoints set up in this dungeon, even top international figures could only escape a short distance if they wanted to. Rumor has it that since the construction of the dungeon, no one has ever succeeded in escaping. Chapter 1435. Glen's base camp covered a very large area. Glen had originally built a dungeon here. This was not a secret, but something that everyone knew. And Zheng Liang had never thought that they would really be able to enter Glen's base camp. He had already prepared to retreat in the fastest way if he was exposed. No matter what, as the team leader, he had to protect his team members as well as the two little girls from Min City's military academy. Even if he had to sacrifice his life, he had to protect them. However, Zheng Liang had never thought that they would really enter Glen's base camp in just 10 minutes. As for the dungeon in Glen's base camp, this was not a big secret. It was something that anyone with a little fame in the international circle knew about. Even if he didn't have any fame, he wouldn't be afraid that no one would tell him about it if he inquired about it internationally. The dungeon in Glenn's base camp was guarded by a forest. It was even more difficult than entering Glenn's base camp. In the dungeon, other than the most high-tech door installed at the entrance, there were also heavy guards inside. Not even a fly could fly out. It was said that the most powerful one had escaped from the dungeon cell to the entrance and almost succeeded in escaping. In the end, because he couldn't crack the password to open the door, he was shot to death by a large wave of guards armed with machine guns. Hearing in Zhengliang's words, Black Sister, Yu Xiaoluo, the two special forces soldiers standing around, and the members of Interpol all had gloomy expressions. Captain, according to what you said, no one who entered that place has ever successfully escaped from prison. If our people who were captured and imprisoned are really there, then wouldn't we not even have a 0.1% chance of winning? Black Sister's face stiffened as she asked. Although this was an indisputable fact, and Zhengliang couldn't bear to say it when he saw everyone staring at him in unison. However, in the end, he still nodded. That dungeon was built a little earlier than Glenn became the boss of the underground black market in Europe and America. It is said that Glenn doesn't like to kill people. He likes to imprison all the agents who assassinate him in the dungeon and then let them fight on their own. That dungeon should be a place where the winner is the king. A place where the winner is the king. This also meant that in the dungeon, the weak and the strong, if the strong wanted to kill the weak, they didn't need anyone's permission. In that case, wouldn't Gu Junjian be in danger? Let's go. Yun Jian stood up and walked out. Yun Jian, don't go, Yu Xiaoluo had just stood up and followed Yun Jian out of the staircase when he saw a group of people standing in front of the staircase. Wasn't the person in the middle of this group the famous Glenn? At this moment, Glenn was looking at Yun Jian and Yu Xiaoluo as if they were prey, and, downstairs. Glenn's appearance was very ordinary. His hair was very short, and he was not tall. He was a very ordinary old man, about 50 or 60 years old. Seeing Glenn standing there quietly with a group of people, Yu Xiaoluo's heart almost jumped out of his chest. It was as if a ghost had suddenly appeared. Hey, you guys. Seeing Yun Jian and Yu Xiaoluo walk out of the staircase, and Zhengliang, Blackie, and the others followed. The two groups of people looked at each other. When they saw Glenn, and Zhengliang, Blackie, and the others turned pale with fright. At this moment, Glenn suddenly laughed out loud and waved his hand. My prey, I've been waiting for you for a long time. He. Laughing loudly, Glenn's subordinates took a large bottle of spray and sprayed it at Yun Jian and the others. The people who were sprayed quickly fainted. Glenn's group was already prepared, so they naturally wouldn't be stunned by their own spray. No one saw the smile on Yun Jian's face before she fainted. Chapter 1436. In the haze, everyone fainted. Before they fainted, the people who were frightened by Glenn's sudden appearance only had one thought: it's over. Glenn had a strange habit. He liked to watch people kill each other and not be easily killed by his own shot. Therefore, he built the dungeon to watch this group of people fend for themselves. The dungeon held all agents, assassins, or black market forces from all over the world. Those people were all demons who killed without batting an eyelid. They knew the way of survival and were used to killing to increase their vanity. In that place, the king of killing was the ruler. Yun Jian woke up early. She leaned against one of the prison walls and closed her eyes. F***ck, you be *tch, get moving. Like a corpse. D*mn be *tch. I won't F***ck you until you cry. A howl came from the side. Without opening her eyes, she knew that a man was forcing himself on a woman. The prison Yun Jian was in was very big. It was about the size of 5 classrooms. Moreover, it was full of people. Men and women were mixed together. Here, there was no distinction between men and women. If a woman was too weak, she would become a tool for men to vent. Yun Jian opened her eyes and saw Mu Ying, and Zhengliang, Black Sister, Yu Xiaoluo, and the others. Looking to the side, there was Gu Junjian, whom she had not seen for a long time, and Gu Yunjian's teammates who were caught here with him. Yunjian, you're finally awake. Yu Xiaoluo heaved a sigh of relief. Yunjian had actually woken up a long time ago, or it could be said that she had not fainted. Only then did she stand up. From the beginning, she had already figured out everything. After Gu Junjian and his teammates sneaked into Glen's base and were discovered, they were locked up in the dungeon. In the dungeon, other than women who were not strong enough and became slaves for men to vent, the newcomers would be beaten up by the old people in the dungeon. Some of them would even die. The reason why Yunjian and the others were fine and Gu Junjian was not killed was because Gu Junjian and the others had a very strong teammate, so no one dared to bully them. While Yunjian was unconscious, the third corpse had already been moved out of the dungeon. Those were the corpses of the weak. What should we do? In this kind of place, we will be killed sooner or later. Blackie asked with a pale face. Gu Junjian had a very strong teammate named Lin Wei. The reason why Yunjian and the others weren't challenged by those lunatics in the dungeon was because of Lin Wei. But now, Lin Wei was already covered in injuries from fighting with that group of people. He couldn't hold on any longer. In a place like this, there were only people who were beaten to death. Even a very powerful person would die from exhaustion or infection of their wounds after challenging one expert after another. This was the dungeon. Anyone who entered would die without a doubt. Yunjian knew this, but she acted as if nothing had happened. Her goal had been achieved. She had found Gu Junjian. At this moment, a group of men suddenly walked over. This group of men walked in front of Yunjian and the others, looked at Yunjian, Mu Ying, and Blackie, and then said with an evil smile, "Yo yo yo, 3 chicks have come. You know the rules here, right? The chicks have to be given to our boss to enjoy. How about it, you guys should obediently hand them over, This person smiled very wretchedly. The boss he spoke of was the most powerful person in this dungeon. Hearing this person's words, Gu Junjian didn't even care about being afraid. He directly protected Yunjian and the other 2 behind him. F***ck, you don't want to? That way of yours is about to die. Let's see who can save you this time. Before the man could finish, Yunjian pulled Gu Junjian who was standing in front of her away. She squinted her eyes and licked her lips as she looked at the people in front of her. Her melodious voice stood out as she spoke in an insolent tone that shocked everyone. Call your trashy boss over. Today, I'll show him what the real way to survive in the underground world is. I will show him who is the real powerhouse. No one knew the world of the underground black market better than her. Chapter 1437. Yunjian's words stunned the men standing in front of her. It was obvious that Yunjian, who was only 16 or 17 years old, was able to say something like that despite her youthful looks. Not only were the men standing opposite of Yunjian shocked, but Yu Xiaoluo, and Zheng Liang, He Mei, and the rest were equally shocked. It even attracted the attention of all the prisoners sitting around the dungeon. Gu Junjian was the only one who knew the reason why Yunjian dared to say that. Gu Junjian was aware of Yunjian's identity as slaying God. However, when he saw the men having designs on Yunjian and the other 2 girls, Gu Junjian had forgotten about Yunjian's identity. He had stood up to protect her out of reflex. Yo, yo, yo. Is this chick challenging our prison boss? Right after Yunjian finished speaking, an indecent male voice was heard. It was the man who was watching the show. Hee, this chick has a death wish. How dare she call the prison boss trash? She doesn't know our prison boss's identity before he was sent to the dungeon. Before he was sent to the dungeon, he was Marshal King, ranked 10th on the international assassin chart. If we weren't trapped here, we wouldn't even have the chance to meet Marshal King who's ranked on the international assassin chart. He. Another male voice sounded. This voice was as lazy as it could be. Most of the people here had the mentality of, I won't be able to get out of the dungeon anyway. They were here to drag out an ignoble existence and live as long as they could. There was nothing to talk about, so the people here like to talk about their past deeds outside. And Zheng Liang, Hei Mei, Yu Xiaoluo, and the rest looked worried when they heard that the prison boss was once ranked on the international assassin chart. Even Lin Wei, who had accepted all sorts of challenges from the people in the prison over the past few days and was the strongest among them, could not stand up anymore. His eyelids twitched and his eyes were filled with despair. The title of prison boss was not for nothing. The number of people Marshal King had killed in the prison all these years was immeasurable. No one in the prison disagreed with his identity as the prison boss. Because the Marshal King's fist was hard enough. King Wu? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly when she heard this name. The Marshal King, who ranked 10th on the international assassin rankings, had lived for even longer than Yun Jian's debut, but Yun Jian had indeed heard of the Marshal King's name. Unfortunately, many years ago, the Marshal King disappeared into thin air as if he had evaporated into thin air. There was an unwritten rule in the international ranking of assassins and secret agents. Assassins or secret agents who disappeared for half a year were automatically considered dead. Naturally, someone else would take their place. It turned out that the Marshal King was not dead, but imprisoned in the dungeon. No wonder King Wu went missing. Yun Jian's eyes flickered. The men who had been calling the Marshal King boss earlier thought that Yun Jian was afraid. They looked at Yun Jian and spoke again, their voices filled with arrogance and pride. That's right. The Marshal King who was ranked 10th on the assassin rankings was our boss. Little sister, are you scared now? If you're scared, then come over obediently, or else. Just as these men spoke up to this point, a figure suddenly flitted past in front of them. Yun Jian sent them flying with a few kicks, then grabbed the collar of the man who had been speaking rudely just now and dragged him away. Gu Junjian, Yu Xiaoluo, and the others were stunned when they saw this, but they quickly followed. In a corner, a man had just gotten up from an unconscious woman. He pulled his belt and was just about to leave when a heavy figure was thrown in front of him. This man was the Marshal King. And the figure thrown on the ground was the man who had spoken rudely to Yun Jian just now. The Marshal King abruptly raised his head. When he saw Yun Jian, his brows furrowed slightly. Who are you? The Marshal King's vigilance was still very high. He looked at Yun Jian and immediately asked. Although this little girl was young, from her appearance, she was not an ordinary person. Not long after the Marshal King asked, Yun Jian's equally arrogant words were heard. Chapter 1438. Gu Junjian and Mu Ying, who were the first to rush up, were not surprised when they heard Yun Jian's words. After all, the two of them already knew about Yun Jian's identity. However, Zheng Liang, Black Sister, and the others who caught up from behind, as well as Lin Wei, who was being supported and beaten to the brink of death, were all stunned when they heard Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian. What did she say? Not only did she say that King Wu was a trash boss, but now she wants King Wu to give up his position as the prison's boss? Black Sister didn't like Yun Jian very much when she appeared, because in Black Sister's eyes, Yun Jian was here to cause trouble. Now, she disliked Yun Jian even more. Lin Wei was the strongest in their group, and the only reason why the people in the prison didn't bully him was because Lin Wei was still alive. However, there were still a lot of people who were eyeing Lin Wei covetously, waiting for Lin Wei to die before rushing up to make things difficult for Gu Junjian and the others. Probably because the people here were locked up for a long time without seeing the light, the only thing left in their world was killing. King Wu, who was standing opposite Yun Jian, stretched out his thumb and rubbed his nose. His ugly face was full of red pimples, and it looked like he had overindulged in debauchery. In the past few years, the only person who dared to challenge me was you. Little girl. King Wu rubbed his hands and said this sentence in a strange tone. It was obvious that King Wu was now very unhappy with Yun Jian's actions. The evil aura emitted from King Wu's body made Lin Wei tremble. Lin Wei was the strongest in Gu Yunjian's group. At that time, he fought with King Wu once and was defeated in a few moves. However, King Wu didn't kill him. Everyone in the prison knew that King Wu liked to torture people slowly. When people were tired, or he wanted to make a move, he would kill them. Later, before King Wu killed Lin Wei, Gu Junjian, and the others, Yun Jian came. What a pity, it seems that today, not only will I be the only person who challenged you in all these years, but I will also be the executioner who ends your life. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She wasn't scared by King Wu's aura in front of everyone. Instead, she openly looked at King Wu and said this arrogantly. A 16 or 17-year-old girl had just said something that many of the men present didn't dare to say. They didn't even dare to let out a fart. Everyone present was stunned. Did this little girl go crazy after realizing that she couldn't go out? Was she stupid? Because she couldn't accept the truth, she went crazy? Yun Jian. You want to kill us? Black Sister ground her teeth, using a voice that was equivalent to a warning to speak these words very softly from her mouth. Yun Jian's right's words died to dies, Yun's always to death. She just to die to die. She's always caused trouble was caused troubles Yun's to dies to die. But now, she actually went against King Wu's words. Everyone present knew King Wu's strength. If they were to go against King Wu, then all of them would die. Yun Jian naturally heard Yun Jian's words, but she ignored them. She glanced to the side. In the next breath, Yun Jian suddenly lifted her leg and ran towards King Wu. She made the first move. King Wu saw this and couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Yun Jian's running speed was extremely slow and full of loopholes. King Wu didn't raise his guard at all. Just as he was about to raise his hand, Yun Jian was already in front of King Wu. She suddenly became fierce, and a butterfly knife appeared in her hand. In front of everyone, she directly plunged it into King Wu's neck. King Wu died on the spot. In a battle between experts, victory or defeat was decided in one move. Yun Jian's eyes widened when she saw this scene. After King Wu fell to the ground and died before he could even utter his last words, Yun Jian scanned the crowd and said with a red smile, "You're right. From now on, I'm your new prison boss." With that, Yun Jian bent down and pulled out the butterfly knife from King Wu's neck. Chapter 1439. Yun Jian's attack was so fast that no one had a chance to react. King Wu was a very powerful person, so powerful that even Yun Jian had to maintain full vigilance. However, in the eyes of outsiders, the battle between Yun Jian and King Wu was only a matter of 10 seconds. In these short 10 seconds, he had already come up with dozens of battle plans in his mind in a battle between two experts. In a battle between experts, every move was fatal. Yun Jian had shown her flaws to King Wu. King Wu clearly thought that she had some ability, but she was still too young, so King Wu did not raise his guard from the beginning. King Wu was an assassin, so his vigilance should not have been so weak. However, Yun Jian had guessed it in advance. Especially the words that the martial king himself had said. King Wu said that in the past few years, she was the only person who dared to challenge him. This meant that King Wu had been in the position of prison boss for a long time and had not met an opponent for a few years. Perhaps King Wu used to be very powerful, so powerful that it was amazing. Yun Jian had never met King Wu, but she had heard of his name. King Wu, who was ranked 10th on the international assassin rankings. His strength was comparable to the 4th on the international assassin rankings. His ranking was just a little lower. In the past, King Wu was very strong, but after staying in prison for so many years, the current King Wu did not work hard in such a cruel world and had gradually lost his edge. Coupled with King Wu's own words, he had not met an opponent who could fight him for so many years. A kind of numbness appeared in his heart, and he felt that no one was as good as him. This was the key to Yun Jian's victory over King Wu in one move. She could read people's minds. Therefore, in terms of opponents, if their opponents were too weak, they would gradually relax and feel that they were already strong enough. They would no longer work hard or fight for anything. However, they did not know that they were just frogs at the bottom of a well. They were stuck in the same place, while others were working hard to the peak. For example, in school sports and running competitions, if the opponents in the same group were too weak, then the results of the entire group would not be too high. Perhaps they were already complacent, but compared to the people in the other groups, they were lagging by a lot. Yun Jian understood this a long time ago, so she never wanted her opponents to be too weak. She even wanted to go to more dangerous places to challenge herself. Because only by tempering oneself and walking on the edge of life and death could one become the ultimate king. In the eyes of outsiders, Yun Jian's action of killing King Wu looked like she had easily killed King Wu with a single move. Therefore, the surrounding people were dumbfounded. Especially the black-haired girl who had just said that Yun Jian wanted to kill them. Now, the black-haired girl's face was terrifyingly dark. Inside the prison, the people who were originally sitting lazily and watching the show all stood up at this moment. The martial king had dominated the prison for a long time. It could be said that he had never met a worthy opponent in all these years. Therefore, the people in the prison were already numb, thinking that no one would be able to kill the martial king in this lifetime. But no one expected that the person who killed the martial king would come. Furthermore, she was an underage girl. For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded. Yun Jian. Yu Xiaoluo gulped. He took a long time to call out Yun Jian's name. In the end, he could not say anything. Although Gu Junjian already knew Yun Jian's identity, the moment Yun Jian rushed up, he still broke out in a cold sweat for Yun Jian. Now that he saw that Yun Jian was safe, Gu Junjian felt a sense of relief. At this moment, Yun Jian walked up to Gu Junjian and the others. She wiped the blood off the butterfly knife, then put it away. She stood in front of Gu Junjian and the others and said generously, "All right, I can go now." Go? Go where? Yu Xiaoluo did not understand, but he was the first to react. At this moment, Yun Jian had already walked to the door of the prison cell. Yun Jian, are you thinking of breaking out of the prison? Yu Xiaoluo said in horror. At this moment, the people around the prison turned their gazes over. Chapter 1440. A small and broken prison. This is a small and broken prison. The people present were shocked by Yun Jian's words. A small and broken prison? Little girl, we admit your strength, but you actually said that this is a small and broken prison? The prison in our dungeon is as strong as iron. Not to mention the entrance of the dungeon, even the prison's cage has a password lock installed. It's a system device. If you want to open the door, you have to use Glenn's fingerprints to open the cage. In addition to the prison's cage, you have to go all the way to the dungeon's entrance. The dungeon's entrance also requires Glenn's fingerprints to unlock the password lock. Here, there are 2 thresholds. Not to mention the guards that were patrolling the area. Moreover, if we casually touch the password lock, the alarm system will immediately be pulled. We will be caught before we can even start to escape. I've been here for more than 10 years and have long given up hope of leaving. You may not know, but the prison boss who was earlier than the martial king was a terrifying guy who was 10 times more powerful than the martial king. Back then, the martial king was only enough to be the underling of that prison boss. In the end, that terrifying guy escaped and broke through the password lock of the prison's cage. He broke through all the obstacles and had already reached the entrance of the dungeon. However, because he couldn't unlock the password lock at the entrance of the dungeon, he was directly shot to death by the guards who chased after him with a machine gun. That's why the martial king was able to become our prison boss. Little girl, I think you're quite young, so don't do stupid things. Hey! Back then, I was also a warrior who served the country and the people. In the end, I was still locked up here and one of my hands was crippled. However, I'm already very satisfied to be able to save this rotten life of mine. Just as Yun Jian was about to take action, a man in his 50s with long hair, who probably hadn't cut it for many years, sitting in the corner, raised his head to look at Yun Jian and kindly reminded her. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have said so many words of advice to Yunjian. After all, just like the previous prison boss, the Martial King, if someone questioned his ability in front of everyone, according to the Martial King's character, he would guarantee to kill the person who questioned his ability at the first moment. The words of this man with long hair in his 50s made Yunjian narrow her eyes, and maiden Zhengliang, Black Sister, and the others turn pale with fright. First of all, it can be confirmed that the terrifying guy that this man was definitely the one Zhengliang mentioned before, the one who escaped the farthest and was shot to death by a machine gun because he couldn't unlock the password lock at the entrance of the dungeon. However, everyone didn't expect that person to be 10 times more powerful than the Martial King. If that was the case, would Yunjian not have an even lower chance of winning? Wanting to escape, that was simply courting death. Escaping prison, that is death. Yunjian, don't drag us into your mess. I've been putting up with you for a long time. You've been causing trouble for us since the beginning. Look what you've done now. We're all going to die here. Hee, then do you know how to unlock the password lock? Have you ever thought that if you escape, you will be like the previous boss, who was shot to death by a machine gun because he couldn't unlock the password lock? Don't make trouble for us, we. Black Sister clenched her fists and made a gesture of tolerating Yunjian for a long time. Gotcha. However, before Black Sister finished speaking, the sound of a lock being unlocked was heard. Black Sister and the others turned their heads in surprise, only to see that Yunjian had already unlocked the password lock in her hand. Chapter 1441. Careless? He accidentally unlocked the password lock. Everyone was stunned. In front of the prison cage was a door with a password lock. This password lock was monitored by a computer program. Unless Glenn pressed his finger and fingerprint on the top of the password lock could not be unlocked. Otherwise, if someone reached out and pressed 3 buttons on the password lock would sound an alarm. If someone tried to escape, the guards in the prison would immediately know and rush over. Normally, if the alarm did not sound, there would be no guards patrolling here. Because without the password lock, the prison cage was extremely stable. Even if it was bombarded with cannons, it would not be able to blow it open. The cage of the prison was only a little worse than the entrance of the dungeon, so Glenn had no intention of sending anyone to guard this place. This was because if someone wanted to escape, they would touch the combination lock. Once the combination lock was touched, a loud alarm would sound. In this way, the guards would immediately know and rush over. If they did not touch the password lock, the people here would not be able to break the cage at all, nor would they be able to get out. The terrifying fellow who had escaped to the entrance of the dungeon was already the most powerful one among all the prisoners in the dungeon who had escaped. Even he had to spend a few months before he was able to crack the combination lock. Most people had not even stepped out of the prison cage before they were discovered because they had touched the password lock and sounded the alarm. There was an unwritten rule in the dungeon, and that was, once someone was found to have escaped from prison, they would be shot on the spot. Therefore, there were many people who had died trying to escape from prison over the years. Over time, the people here did not dare to take the risk of escaping from prison. But what happened today? Black Sis had just finished speaking, and before she could finish speaking, Yunjian had already unlocked the password lock. This? Yunjian, you. At this moment, Black Sis had just recovered from the shock of Yunjian killing the Martial King. In the end, she had just opened her mouth to say something righteous when Yunjian ruthlessly slapped her in front of everyone. This time, Black Sis's face really darkened. Originally, it was not black, but it had really turned black. I won't force you to break out of prison with me. Now, those who are willing to come with me, those who aren't can stay. Also, if any accidents happen during the escape, I won't be responsible, because I can still leave without you. Yunjian looked at everyone in the prison. She reached out and shook the password lock in her hand. In the next moment, she threw the password lock in her hand to the ground. However, she curled her red lips. Although she said that, Yunjian glanced at Gujunjian. She was here to save Gu Junjian. As for why she invited others, it was because she was not alone. She wanted to bring Gu Junjian out. The more people, the safer Gu Junjian. Even if the guards were to catch up, Gu Junjian would not be the first to die. Don't blame her, Yunjian, for being cruel. This was the way of survival. To achieve one's goal by hook or by crook, this was the principle of being a secret agent. She, Yunjian, was never a good person, and had never admitted that she was. I'll go with you. The man in his 50s who kindly reminded Yunjian just now stood up and spoke first. His hair was very long because it had been a long time since he had trimmed it. I don't want to stay here anymore. Instead of staying here for the rest of my life, I might as well fight for my freedom. Even if I die, I won't regret it. My name is Wei Gear, a police officer from country Y. I'll go with you. The man who called himself Wei Gear looked at Yunjian and spoke. Those who want to go, follow me. Those who don't, I won't force you. Yunjian curled her lips. She did not answer Wei Gear. Instead, she curled her red lips. It was obvious that Yunjian was not going to say welcome. Other than Wei Gear, Gu Junjian, Mu Ying, Yu Xiaoluo, Lin Wei, He Mei, and Zheng Liang, and the rest, there were also a few people who followed Yunjian. Soon, under Yunjian's lead, the few of them made countless turns and arrived at a fork. There were 2 guards standing in front of the fork, each holding a machine gun in their hands. Yunjian waved her hand to signal for everyone to stop. Then, she bit on an unused butterfly knife in her mouth and rolled towards the 2 guards. What shocked He Mei, Yu Xiaoluo, and the rest was that Yunjian rolled on the ground and arrived in front of the 2 guards. Logically speaking, in such a quiet environment, this roll should have made some noise. However, the strange thing was that Yunjian's roll did not make any noise at all. Yunjian was not human at all, this supernatural thing. Chapter 1442. Yunjian silently rolled to the side of the 2 guards. She did not reach for the butterfly knife in her mouth. Instead, she stood behind the 2 guards. Because the dungeon was built in the basement, there was no light all year round. They could only rely on electric lights to light up the passageway. Although Yunjian's movements were silent, when the light shone on the ground, they could see her figure. The 2 guards originally had their backs facing Yunjian. When they suddenly saw that under the light, other than their own shadows, there was another small shadow on the ground in front of them. They were immediately shocked. After all, if someone approached them in such a quiet place, they would definitely make some noise. Moreover, the 2 guards knew very well that if someone wanted to escape from the prison cell, they had to crack the password lock. If the password lock could not be cracked by pressing it 3 times, the alarm would immediately be sounded. The only person who could crack the password lock was the terrifying person who had escaped to the entrance of the dungeon and was shot to death by the guards with a machine gun. Therefore, these 2 guards were not on high alert to begin with. After trembling violently, the 2 guards wanted to turn around as if they had seen a ghost. Gu Junjian, and Zheng Liang, He Mei, Yu Xiaoluo, and the others who were hiding in the corner were terrified. The 2 guards turned around. Just as the guards turned around, however, they saw that Yunjian and Gu Junjian and the others who had peeked their heads out from the corner had already left the cell. The guards were about to cry out in shock when they heard Yunjian's voice. Yunjian, who was standing in front of the 2 guards, suddenly reached into her pocket and took out 2 pieces of paper that were rolled into a circle. The 2 guards were shocked that Yunjian and the others had escaped from the prison and were about to scream. She took out the paper towels with both hands and stuffed them into the 2 guards' mouths before they could make a sound. Then, Yunjian grabbed the 2 guards' jackets and used their own jackets to completely tie them up. Yunjian then held the butterfly knife that was biting her lips in her hand. She pressed the butterfly knife against the neck of one of the guards and called Gu Junjian and the others who were hiding in the corner to come over. Gu Junjian and the others walked over very carefully. There were only 2 guards nearby, but they still chose to be careful in order to prevent any accidents. Yunjian, why don't you just kill them? Why are you wasting time here? Hei Mei said to Yun Jian angrily. Yun Jian ignored Hei Mei. She lowered her head and looked at the two guards. She whispered to the guard whose neck she was pressing, "Dungeon entrance, lead the way." Hei Mei was a little angry that Yun Jian did not kill them and was wasting time here. But after hearing Yun Jian's words, Hei Mei suddenly came to her senses. The dungeon was very large. Hei Mei immediately felt that what she said just now made her seem stupid. Yun Jian's eyes stared straight at the guard whose neck she was pressing against. The guard shook his head desperately and tried to break free. He even tried to knock on the ground with his feet to ask for help. It was a pity that Yun Jian stabbed the guard's temple just as he was about to flee. With a muffled groan, the guard died instantly. Seeing the blood splatter, Hei Mei was still shocked. Even Lin Wei, who was stronger, couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He even complained in a low voice, "This little girl is quite fierce." Before he finished, Yun Jian had already pulled out the butterfly knife and planned to stab the other guard's temple. When the other guard saw this, he shook his head and began to mumble. Seeing that the plan was successful, Yun Jian's red arc curved and she said, "Lead the way." The guard immediately nodded. Yun Jian stood up and waved her hand to let Gu Junjian and the others hold the guard hostage. Generally, the guards in the dungeon were strictly trained, and they would definitely not betray Glenn after being caught by the enemy for a while. It would take months of torture to force the hostages to submit, but Yun Jian only used a few seconds to make the guards submit obediently. And Zheng Liang, Hei Mei, Lin Wei, Wei Gear, and the others were stunned. Chapter 1443. The second one to follow was Mu Ying. She was holding a shiny pistol in her hand. Those who didn't know would wonder where she got the gun from, but Lin Wei saw it clearly just now. Mu Ying's gun was snatched from a prisoner who secretly hid a pistol when she was still in prison. Not only did Mu Ying snatch the pistol, she also knocked the prisoner unconscious. Because Yun Jian was too outstanding at that time, the people around them didn't notice Mu Ying's actions. Lin Wei was considered the strongest in the group, but because he was challenged every day in prison, and it was the kind of battle where one's life or death would be at stake if he wasn't careful, Lin Wei was in a very sorry state at the moment. He was covered in injuries and had to rely on the help of two other Special Forces soldiers to walk forward. However, Lin Wei was the only one who saw Mu Ying snatch the pistol, and he was shocked at that time. He was only able to save his life in prison. However, Yun Jian and Mu Ying, these two female students from Min City's military school, one killed the prison boss directly, and the other snatched a pistol in prison. If it were him, Lin Wei wouldn't even dare to do that. It was already good enough that he could save his own life in prison. Not to mention anything else. Therefore, Yun Jian and Mu Ying's actions frightened Lin Wei. His soul returned to reality. Yun Jian walked in front, and Mu Ying was the second to follow. Seeing this, Gu Junjian and Zheng Liang, who grabbed the guard, carried him and quickly followed Yun Jian. Hei Mei, Lin Wei, Wei Gear, and the others were at the bottom. Under the guard's hand gestures, the group of people moved toward the dungeon gate. They went through countless turns along the way. Perhaps the guard was afraid of death, so he led the way and they didn't meet anyone else. "We're here. That's the dungeon gate." Wei Gear, who was walking at the back, saw the dungeon gate. He said in a muffled voice, but he was so excited that he wanted to scream. In the end, Wei Gear calmed himself down. How many years had it been? Weigel was a glorious criminal police officer. When he failed to assassinate Glenn and was locked up in the dungeon, he even felt that it was better to die than to lose his freedom. When one of his hands was crippled in the dungeon, Weigel had already planned to die. No one had ever escaped from this dungeon. Even that terrifying character who was 10 times more powerful than the Martial King was unable to leave this place. Not to mention them. However, Weigel gave up on death because his good comrade, who had been imprisoned with him, had died for him. Before he died, he had shouted at him, "You must live on." Even that terrifying figure could only escape to the entrance of the dungeon, but they actually managed to do it. Wei Gear was excited. At the same time, he was 100% certain about Yunjian's strength. This little girl's strength was definitely not inferior to that terrifying figure from back then. Perhaps they could really leave this place. They soon arrived at the entrance of the dungeon. There was a password lock hanging above the entrance. This password lock was even more complicated than the password lock in the prison back then. Ordinary people would not be able to understand the program on this password lock. Yunjian, quickly unlock it, Blackie said excitedly. At the same time, her heart clenched tightly. It's too late. They're coming. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. She looked ahead, the way they came. However, she saw that directly opposite the dungeon, a large group of fully armed guards rushed in front of Yunjian and the others. Each of them carried a machine gun in their hands. Ah! How did they discover us? Blackie was so scared that her legs instantly trembled. The few people present immediately recalled that this was where that terrifying figure was shot to death by the guards' machine guns. After so many years, the scene from back then had reappeared once again. Yunjian wanted to unlock the password lock on this side of the dungeon. Naturally, she would need more time than the prison. And now, the guards were all holding machine guns in their hands. The muzzles were pointed at everyone present. That's how that terrifying figure died back then. We've been discovered. It's over. It's really over. Wei Gear was paralyzed on the ground as he said these words. With me here, do they really think that these few machine guns can stop us from leaving this place? Yunjian smirked and laughed coldly. Forget about machine guns. Someone once tried to bombard her with cannons and she easily dodged it. She did not care about these few machine guns at all. Yunjian's words were just normal words in her eyes. However, in the ears of Blackie, Wei Gear, Lin Wei, and the others, these words had a very different meaning. Humans, against machine guns, could still survive? This was the first time they heard such a statement. Without a doubt, they were very suspicious of Yunjian's words. Even Gu Junjian looked worried. Chapter 1444. The group of guards did not say a word. They raised their machine guns and were about to fire. Yunjian did not say anything. However, she had already noticed that there was a surveillance camera right above the entrance of the dungeon. There were also surveillance cameras along the way. However, the path they took earlier was the only way. There was no other way. Or to put it another way, Yunjian knew from the start that the guards had purposely led them here. At this moment, the group of guards had already raised their machine guns. Muing, take them away. Just as the group of guards were still loading their machine guns and were about to point their machine guns at Yunjian and the rest, Yunjian shouted. She grabbed the guard who was in front of Gu Junjian and the rest and rushed towards the group of guards. This scene almost made Zhengliang, Wei Gear, and the rest go crazy. Lin Wei frowned and then shouted at the figure that Yunjian was rushing towards, "Young lady, come back. You'll die." She was going to face the group of guards with machine guns alone. Did she want to die? Lin Wei was purely concerned about Yunjian. Hence, he reached out to grab the corner of Yunjian's clothes. However, he did not expect Yunjian's reaction to be so fast. She grabbed the guard who was holding her hostage. She could still run so fast while holding a person. In the blink of an eye, Yunjian was already about 5 to 6 meters away from the group of guards with machine guns. Seeing Yunjian rush over, the group of guards originally planned to deal with Gu Junjian and the rest who were around Yunjian first before dealing with Yunjian. However, because of Yunjian's sudden rush, she was already in front of them. When the guards saw this, they immediately turned their machine guns that were aimed at Gu Junjian and the rest to Yunjian who was rushing towards the group of guards. All the machine guns were aimed at Yunjian alone. She had lured the machine guns away for Gu Junjian and the rest, taking on the barrage of bullets alone. She was going to die for sure. Even Gu Junjian, who had always been confident in Yun Jian and knew of her identity, shouted at Yun Jian, "Xiao Jian, come back. It's dangerous." Gu Junjian shouted as he chased after Yun Jian. Before Gu Junjian could go after her, however, Gu Junjian, and Zheng Liang, Blackie Mei, and the rest who were standing where they were saw a frightening scene. Yun Jian did not even turn back as she rushed over. Some of the guards who were armed with machine guns had already loaded their guns and aimed them at Yun Jian. Bang, 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 bang. Gunshots rang out one after another. Yun Jian dragged the guard who led the way just now and placed him in front of her like a meat wall. The bullets from the machine guns hit the guard hard. The guard's eyes were still wide open before he died. As he could not make a sound, he grunted twice before he died in terror. Yun Jian did not stop dragging the guard's corpse. The machine guns in the guard's hands could penetrate a person's body. After the gun hit the guard in Yun Jian's hand, it paused for a second before it went through Yun Jian, who was behind her. If it was anyone else in Yun Jian's position, they would probably be dead now. However, for Yun Jian, this pause was enough. The moment the machine guns in the guard's hand stopped firing, Yun Jian threw away the guard's corpse in her hand. She jumped to the side. She had already arrived in front of one of the guards. In the next moment, Yun Jian used her elbow to smash the neck of the nearest guard standing in front of her. With one smash, she broke the guard's neck. At the same time, she snatched the machine gun from the guard whose neck she broke first. She did not even think about it. She grabbed the machine gun and swept it at the guards around her. She fired as she ran. A large number of the guards immediately fell. However, those who were still alive would still attack Yun Jian. Yun Jian dodged the bullets as she fought back against the guards. That nimble figure seemed to be very familiar with this kind of battlefield filled with bullets. He was like a general who had survived a battle of life and death. And Zheng Liang, Blackie, and the others who were in the distance stared with wide eyes. They watched as Yun Jian finished off the last guard. Then, she threw the machine gun in her hand to the ground and walked back to them. There was no trace of blood on her body. However, her entire body reeked of gunpowder. The moment she turned around and walked over, her high ponytail swayed left and right. At that moment, everyone was in a daze. Chapter 1445. The battle only lasted for 3 minutes. Within those 3 minutes, Yun Jian executed hundreds of moves. Every move and movement was not allowed to deviate by even a millimeter. Everyone who stood rooted to the spot was stunned for 3 whole minutes. Even Mu Ying's eyes flashed with surprise. She was only about 9 years old when she died. She was dead, but Yun Jian was still alive, and Yun Jian continued to train her skills in the organization. After Mu Ying took on this body, she had been practicing martial arts with her parents since she was born into a military family. She was very hardworking and had the experience of being an assassin organization. Mu Ying's skills were not to be underestimated. Compared to Yun Jian, who grew up in the organization, however, the difference was like heaven and earth. Even Mu Ying could not help but marvel at Yun Jian's ability. If it had been her just now, she would have had no chance of winning. In spite of it, not only did Yun Jian succeed, she did not even have a scratch on her. It was like she was so familiar with the scene just now that she could do it with her eyes closed. You. How did you? Miss Blackie's eyes were about to fall out of their sockets when she saw Yun Jian coming back from the other side. After all, that terrifying fellow had died under the machine guns of the guards. That guy who was 10 times more powerful than Marshal King could not dodge the machine gun attack. He could not escape death. What about Yun Jian? She was from Min City's military school, a kid who had just entered high school, but she had dodged it. This scene caused everyone to be shocked, stunned, and terrified. When Miss Blackie stuttered to Yun Jian was already in front of them. There'll be a new wave of guards coming here in 10 minutes. I can't guarantee that they'll point their guns at me every time, so we have to leave now. Yun Jian explained quickly as she stood in front of the combination lock at the entrance of the dungeon, her fingers tapping on the lock swiftly. Xiao Jian. You were so impulsive just now. What if you missed? Dad knows you have extraordinary skills, but every time I see you taking risks like this, Dad gets worried. Gu Junjian was already used to playing the role of Yun Jian's father. He sighed from the bottom of his heart. He was really worried about Yun Jian. Hearing Gu Yunjian's words, everyone immediately turned to look at Yun Jian. At this moment, everyone wanted to hear Yun Jian's answer. At this moment, he heard Yun Jian's voice. Her fingers were still rapidly working on the password lock. She opened her mouth and said, "I'll be fine. You don't have to worry." Such a dangerous move. Even I think it's dangerous. If you make even the slightest mistake, someone will die. Your mother and I are the same. We hope that you can only do other things when you can guarantee your own safety. Gu Junjian frowned and said to Yun Jian. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. In the end, Yun Jian added, I've never done anything that puts myself in danger. What I did just now isn't the first time. I'm used to these days where I'm on the brink of death. I can guarantee that I'll be fine, so you don't have to worry. As Yun Jian spoke, the password lock on the dungeon door fell with a click. The door opened. Everyone's eyes lit up in surprise. Follow me, don't wander off, Yun Jian said calmly as usual. Yun Jian, let me ask you. We were discovered when we first entered Glen's base. Did you walk out because you knew that Glen and his men were standing outside? Yu Xiaoluo, who had been silent for a long time, asked Yun Jian. Everyone was surprised by Yu Xiaoluo's sudden question and turned to look at Yun Jian. Yun Jian did not reply. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian would not reply, Yun Jian suddenly spoke. Yes, everything is going according to my plan. Moreover, Glen and the others were able to discover our traces because of me. My goal was only to enter the dungeon. Everyone already had a faint premonition about the first sentence, but the second sentence caused everyone to turn pale with fright. The moment they entered Glen's base, they were discovered by Glen and the others. This matter was actually directed and acted by Yun Jian. Chapter 1446. Originally, he thought that he would be discovered as soon as he entered Glen's base camp. Yun Jian's strength was only so-so. Even though Yun Jian knew the back door of Glen's base camp and brought everyone into Glen's base camp in just 10 minutes, they were discovered not long after. This was also the reason why Black Sister didn't believe in Yun Jian again and questioned Yun Jian's strength. However, Yu Xiaoluo had just asked Yun Jian if she knew that they had been discovered by Glen early on, so she walked out at the bottom of the stairs and was deliberately caught by Glen and the others before being sent to the dungeon. And Yun Jian actually replied that not only was all of this in her plan, even the fact that they were discovered by Glen was all done by Yun Jian on purpose. Yun Jian had deliberately let Glen discover them and capture all of them to the dungeon. Yun Jian, what do you mean by that? You actually let Glen discover our whereabouts and then capture us. The dungeon is such a dangerous place, yet you didn't discuss it with us. You said that Glen would capture us and let us in. Have you ever thought about what if we can't get out after we go in? I can understand that you want to save your father, but you can't let all of us take the risk with you. Just now, all of us were almost killed by you, do you know that? Black Sister suddenly reacted. The reason why they were caught in the dungeon was all because of Yun Jian. When she thought of the scenes in the dungeon, she thought of the former prison boss, Marshal King, who used women as tools to vent his anger. Black Sister had lingering fear in her heart as she immediately spoke to Yun Jian. In my world, there is no such word as if. If you say half a word of nonsense, I will kill you right now and let you completely shut your mouth. As Yun Jian spoke, she snatched the pistol from Mu Ying's hand and loaded it with one hand. She directly pressed it against the temple of Black Sister, who was standing beside her and talking non-stop. Yun Jian's eyes did not look at Hei Mei. She frowned slightly and looked straight ahead. The black-haired girl shuddered as the pistol was pressed against her temple. Yun Jian's index finger hooked the pistol. The gun was already loaded. If Yun Jian hooked it gently, her fate would be. In addition, Yun Jian had just snatched the machine gun from the enemy's hands with her bare hands and annihilated all the enemies. She had killed without blinking. Black Sister felt as if she was being stared at by the Grim Reaper. This feeling made her feel suffocated. Hey, Yun Jian, don't be violent. Let's talk nicely. And Zheng Liang hurried over to stop them. At the same time, he looked pleadingly at Gu Junjian, hoping that Gu Junjian would say a few words for him. Xiao Jian, put the gun down. Gu Junjian chimed in. Just as Gu Junjian spoke, Yun Jian lowered her hand that was pressed against the black-haired girl's temple. The black-haired girl breathed a sigh of relief. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian had let go because of Gu Junjian's persuasion, Yun Jian's red arc curled as she chuckled eerily. It's here. Huh? What's here? Everyone was baffled when they heard Yun Jian. They had walked out of the dungeon's entrance and were standing right in front of it. Everyone there, other than Mu Ying, was bewildered when they heard Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian tossed the pistol she had snatched from Mu Ying back to Mu Ying before looking around a corner. In the next second, she curled her red arc and said, Glenn, come out. Aren't you tired after watching for so long? Glenn? Where was Glenn? Everyone tensed up in shock when they heard Yun Jian. Right now, everyone couldn't help but shiver when they heard the word Glenn. Yun Jian, can you stop scaring us? There's no Glenn here. If he's really here, why hasn't he come out? Otherwise, we would have been discovered long ago. Black-haired girl thought that her judgment was correct this time. She had just spoken, but before she could finish her words, clap, clap, clap. A round of applause sounded. In the next second, a short, ordinary-looking old man in his 50s or 60s walked out from the corner that Yun Jian was looking at. Was this old man who exuded a menacing aura not Glenn? Everyone was shocked when they saw him. Glenn spoke abruptly, his words directed at Yun Jian. Chapter 1447. As Glenn spoke, he looked at Yun Jian with a probing gaze. As he spoke, Glenn had a cruel smile on his face, as if he already knew something incredible. It was a pity that Yun Jian did not fall for it. When she was slaying God, the top secret agent in the international ranking, Yun Jian did not mention that she was an old friend of Glenn's. At most, it was Glenn who invited Yun Jian to his base and stood behind her with his head bowed like a pug. That was the truth. If Glenn knew Yun Jian's identity, he would not have spoken to her in such a tone. Glenn was just putting on an act. Glenn's appearance had frightened everyone present. And Zheng Liang, Blackie, and the rest were shocked that Yun Jian could see Glenn hiding in the corner. At the same time, they were shocked by what Glenn said. He said that Yun Jian looked like the top international secret agent, slaying God? That was an extremely terrifying existence. Even as Interpol, they did not dare to come into contact with that existence. Gu Junjian was the only one who knew that Glenn's suspicion was right. Yun Jian was slaying God. Cut the crap. Let's do it. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She did not say anything else but said directly to Glenn. He, what an interesting young lady. Glenn smiled. His smile was more seductive than anyone else's. Glenn, you're old now. You might be able to live a few more years if you smile less. Stop beating around the bush. Just do it if you have the guts. Yun Jian shouted, provoking Glenn. That was the truth. Yun Jian was provoking Glenn by saying that. You. Glenn was angered by Yun Jian's words. Then, he rolled his eyes and felt that he had heard Yun Jian say that somewhere before. Just as Glenn was trying to recall where he had heard Yun Jian say that, Blackie's voice rang again with a member of the criminal police force from Country H who was also from Country H. What should we do? What should we do? She actually went to provoke Glenn. doesn't she know we're in Glenn's headquarters? She was so arrogant just because she had the ability. She didn't even let me scold her. I really don't like her, These words were said very softly, as if she was afraid that Glenn would hear her. Moreover, Black's sister and this member of the criminal police brigade who came from Country H with her spoke in their own country's language, Country H. People from H and Z looked almost the same. It was said that dating back to a long time ago, people from H and Z had the same ancestors. However, H country's language was completely different from Chinese. The reason why Miss Blackie spoke to the member of the criminal police brigade from Country H with her in the language of Country H was that she didn't want Yun Jian to understand what she meant. To put it bluntly, Hei Mei completely thought that Yun Jian couldn't speak H language, so she was so bold to say this in front of Yun Jian. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. She didn't turn around to look at Miss Blackie, let alone pay attention to her. Instead, she pretended that she really couldn't speak H language. This way, Miss Blackie even more wantonly complained about Yun Jian in H language to the member of the criminal police brigade who came from Country H with her. Just as Miss Blackie was getting more and more excited, Glenn suddenly exclaimed. He looked at Yun Jian and asked loudly, his pupils constricting, "What did you say just now?" "What you said just now is exactly the same as what Slaying God said to me back then." Could it be that you're... Glenn's sudden words made everyone's pupils constrict. However, at this moment, a loud sound of a helicopter came from above Glenn's headquarters. In the next second, a tall and handsome figure jumped down from the helicopter that was flying 7 to 8 meters high. The man who suddenly appeared was so handsome that everyone's eyes lit up the moment he appeared. Chapter 1448. After CE jumped down from the helicopter that was about 7 to 8 meters in the air, he stopped his momentum and straightened his body. He suddenly appeared, and the helicopter suddenly flew over, so everyone present was surprised. However, Yun Jian was not one of them. Yun Jian was only slightly surprised. Why was he here again? Although that was what she thought, Yun Jian's heart was still warm when she saw CE always appearing when she was in danger. Even Glenn was shocked when he saw CE's sudden appearance. He then looked at CE from head to toe. Everyone turned to look at the man who had jumped down from the helicopter that was about 7 to 8 meters in the air. CE looked at Glenn with eyes as sharp as a hawk's after he jumped down. This glance caused Glenn to tremble slightly. He, Glenn, had been in the black market for decades. This was the first time he had felt the sharp gaze of a man in his 20s. His entire body involuntarily trembled for a while. However, CE's thin lips moved. He looked at Glenn with his sharp black eyes and said bluntly, "Glenn, the boss of the European and American underground black market. Who are you?" CE had already seen Yun Jian. However, he did not walk over to her directly this time. Instead, he looked at Glenn. Glenn initially thought that other than Slaying God, who was ranked first on the international secret agent ranking, he would not lose his imposing manner in this world. However, he did not expect that today. Not only did a young lady appear and attack his imposing manner, but now there was also a man who had such an imposing manner that he could not even speak. Glenn took a deep breath and replied to CE, "That's right, I'm Glenn. You are, who I am is not important. What's important is that because of what you've done, your position as the boss of the European and American underground black market is gone," CE said coldly. Yun Jian saw that CE did not come over, so she walked over to CE. The people standing beside Yun Jian were stunned. Who was this man? What right did he have to say that Glenn's position as the boss of the European and American underground black market was gone? Just as he was thinking this, Yun Jian was already standing in front of Glenn. Seeing Yun Jian walk over, CE leaned to the side and reached out to grab Yun Jian's hand. What are you? Why do you say that my identity is gone?" Glenn didn't believe it and shouted. "Ae. Xiao Jian." Gu Junjian came to Yun Jian and CE and called out softly looking at Yun Jian and CE. "Old Gu, do you know this man?" Yu Xiaoluo glanced at Ce and walked over with the others. This is my daughter's man. Gu Junjian said proudly. With Ce around, Gu Junjian was not worried at all. Ce and Yunjian were capable people. Once they heard that such a handsome man was Yunjian's man, the people standing beside Gu Junjian looked over. Black Girl's gaze was drawn to Ce the moment she saw him. Glenn saw that the people standing in front of him were no longer afraid of him, especially after what Ce said. He was infuriated. In the next second, he growled into the dark, "Come out. Catch them. Catch all of them." Glenn was still in the mood to tease Yunjian just now, but he was only left with rage now. Glenn's men, who were originally hiding in the dark, only waited for Glenn's order to come out with machine guns on their shoulders. Despite Glenn's roar, there was no movement in the dark at all. Where are they? Where are they? Come out, all of you. Glenn was panicking now. No matter how capable Glenn was when he was young, he was old now and his ability was not what it used to be. If it were not for the group of powerful guards, he was at most a good for nothing. Chapter 1449. The words "and Hun organization" struck a chord in everyone's heart. Everyone was stunned by the deadly words. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the tall and handsome man. Ce's words struck fear into everyone's heart. An Hun organization? Even Glenn, who was still panicking about his men's whereabouts, lost his voice and screamed. Shock, fear, all of these emotions surged into Glenn's heart at that moment. Glenn was not an ordinary person. He was the boss of Europe and America's underground black market. He was the symbol of the underground forces in Europe and America. Yu Xiaoluo and the rest who were standing in front were shocked when they heard Glenn's scream. This man, or rather, Gu Yunjian's son-in-law, was related to the Hun organization. Moreover, he could mobilize the Hun organization to fight Glenn just because of this? This meant that Ce was not an ordinary member of the Hun organization. If that was the case, could it be that Ce was, You're the boss of the Hun organization. She's the #1 international secret agent, slaying God. Glenn was smart. He immediately identified Ce and Yunjian. Hun organization's boss? He's the boss of the Hun organization? And Yunjian is the #1 international secret agent, slaying God? How is this possible? This is impossible. Blackie's pupils dilated in disbelief. She was so shocked that she shrieked on the spot. Blackie did not think of this at all. Even Gu Yunjian's eyes flickered. What do you mean impossible? Do you think I don't know slaying God? Her every move can't be imitated by outsiders. Every time she appears, it's a different face. And the Hun organization. Do you think anyone can start a war with the Hun organization just because they want to? Only the boss of the Hun organization can command the entire Hun organization. Haha. Don't think I can't tell. Glenn knew that he would not be able to escape death. Slaying God, the top international secret agent ranking, and the leader of Hun were both here. It would be a miracle if he could survive. The day he stood in this position, Glenn knew that he would have this day. But before he died, he wanted to put Yunjian and Ce in a difficult position, especially this group of criminal police officers. They probably didn't know. In fact, their most wanted criminals were the two people in front of them. Ha. Since you destroyed me, then I won't let you have it easy either. Glenn, don't know anything else in this life, but I'm good at judging people. Every word and action of slaying God matched perfectly with this young lady. She was not slaying God. Bullshit. Glenn was going to say something more. Before Glenn could finish, however, he was shot in his vitals by the muzzle of a silver pistol that Ce pulled out, killing him instantly. On the way, Glenn didn't even have the chance to react. The reason Glenn was able to become the boss of Europe and America's underground black market was because he had a capable assistant named Kennerson. Kennerson's ability was comparable to the third on the international secret agent ranking. However, Anhun had no shortage of powerful people like Ce. Any one of the 4 leaders of Anhun could kill Kennerson in a second. Therefore, Glenn would definitely die today. Yunjian, Yu Xiaoluo and the rest had yet to recover from the shock that Glenn had brought to them. Before they could react, Yunjian and Ce came forward swiftly and knocked them out before they could react. Muing and Gu Junjian were not among those who were knocked out. Yunjian only stopped after Yu Xiaoluo, Sister Blackie and the rest drank Qin Yu's secret 3-hour amnesia liquid. They could not have their memories because Yunjian still needed to live in Country Z in the military academy. The fewer people who knew about her and Ce's identities, the better. It was fortunate that Qin Yu's secret 3-hour amnesia liquid allowed one to forget 3 hours of memories painlessly without any side effects. Xiao Jian, what did you feed them? Gu Junjian asked with his mouth agape. Amnesia liquid. They'll forget everything that happened in the past 3 hours, Yunjian explained. After Yunjian's explanation, Ce continued to speak to Gu Junjian. As a member of Interpol, father-in-law, you should be eager to eliminate the forces of Europe and America's underground black market. Now that the underground black market has been completely eradicated, you can report back to Interpol directly. Ce paused before he continued to speak to Gu Junjian with a curvature. This is my first gift to you, father-in-law. I only want Xiao Jian. The way he addressed Ce as his father-in-law was smooth. As he spoke, he tightened his grip on Yunjian's hand in front of Gu Junjian. Yunjian's cheeks blushed. Dad can't see anything. Ah, Dad's eyesight is getting worse. Young lady, let's take a walk over there. It's cooler there. Chapter 1450. It was Yunjian's first time learning that Gu Junjian was a member of Interpol. She had never investigated Gu Junjian before, so she was not sure. However, these were all confidential information. Usually, such identities were not allowed to be revealed in the military. They were not even allowed to reveal a word about it to those closest to them. Watching Gu Junjian leave with Muing, Yunjian's lips curved into a faint smile. Gu Junjian reported the incident to Interpol in the end. In the end, all the credit was given to Gu Junjian and the rest. This was also Ce and Yunjian's intention. Yunjian, in particular, did not want to be crowned with a new title in her daily life. Yunjian did not want to experience it, especially when she won first place in the military training field and became the center of attention in school. That was why she allowed Gu Junjian and the rest to take all the credit. However, as the only person who managed to escape from the dungeon, the special forces and members of various countries who were rescued from the dungeon later could not be forgotten. It was just that everyone only knew that there was a teenage girl who was the first to successfully escape from the dungeon with someone else. As for who Yunjian was, it was a figure that would be mentioned in the international news. All in all, an Hun group had helped Interpol to eradicate an international cancer. Everyone in Interpol knew about it. However, an Hun group had done a good deed and retreated quickly. Yu Xiaoluo and the rest were in a daze, not knowing what had happened in the past 3 hours. Gu Junjian brushed them off and did not pursue the matter further. That night, Yunjian and Gu Junjian were sent back to Longmen City by Ce's helicopter. The next day was Saturday and the food festival was held on Friday. Saturday was Qin Yiru's birthday. On the day she returned home, Yunjian did not wish Qin Yiru a happy birthday early in the morning. She made an appointment with her friends and planned to pick out a gift for Qin Yiru in the afternoon. Gu Junjian did not say anything to Qin Yiru and went shopping with his old comrade. Everyone had left early in the morning. Qin Yiru did not even remember that it was her birthday today. She could not help but wonder why everyone had left so early in the morning. Never in her wildest dreams would she have imagined that this person had not gone out to play, but to buy her a birthday present. Yunjian made an appointment with Lu Fian. Chen Sini couldn't come out because she had something to do. Lu Fian was the first friend he had met since he was reborn in Xinjiang town. Come to think of it, today was the first time the two of them had met a year ago. Some time ago, Lu Fian was disappointed when she found out that Yun Jian had gone to Min City after she had finally gotten into a school in Longmen City. Yun Jian waited for Lu Fian at the entrance of a coffee shop where they had agreed to meet. After waiting for about half a minute, Lu Fian, who was carrying a small backpack, hurriedly ran over. There was another girl beside Lu Fian. Phew, almost late, aha. Lu Fian chuckled and studied Yun Jian from head to toe before telling her, Xiao Jian, you haven't gotten tanner after a month of military training. Your skin is so good. Lu Fian chortled and introduced the friend beside her to Yun Jian. This is a friend I made in the new school. Her name is Wang Cancan. She has good taste and can help you pick out a birthday present for your mom. Lu Fian introduced Yun Jian as she spoke. Wang Cancan was a friendly girl. After introducing herself to Yun Jian, she struck up a conversation with Yun Jian. Although Wang Cancan looked innocent, she was a tough woman in her bones and yearned for a superhuman life. A girl like her got along well with Yun Jian. She was generous and did not fuss over minor matters. Let's go to the mall later to buy a birthday present. It's a newly opened mall and there's a lot of stuff inside. There's also a tour of the most exciting and terrifying haunted houses in the country. I heard that Fatty Wang, Ergo, and the others from our class are scared out of their wits even though they're so brave. Heh, let's go take a look if we have time after buying our birthday presents, okay? Wang Cancan asked Lu Fian and Yun Jian generously. If Lu Fian and Yun Jian declined, she would not mention it again. Wang Cancan was not one to fuss over trivial matters. Yun Jian recalled what Wang Cancan said. Chen Sini had mentioned the haunted house before and said that she wanted to go. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.